Chapter 770. He grabbed one person with each hand and soared into the sky, traveling hundreds of thousands of miles in a single breath. 2 hours later, they landed on an inconspicuous mountain. There was a group of young men and women waiting there, accompanied by a few experts. Situ family's master, I've brought them here for you. Leave them to protect you, then you can set your mind at ease. The masked man put Suyu down, then turned around and left. A beautiful woman in a snow-white robe bowed to the masked man from afar. Thank you for your help, my lord. We're just taking what we need. The masked man didn't even turn his head. After she spoke, the snow-robed beautiful woman looked back at Suyu and Yuan Yingying, while surprise flickered in her eyes. Madam Situ, are these the last 2 participants of the test? At the side was a gray-robed elder, and he had a cold and reserved expression. The snow-robed woman smiled gently. Please wait for a moment, elderly. I have something to say to the 2 of them. Elderly nodded, crossed his arms in front of his chest, closed his eyes and waited. After she brought Suyu and Yen Er to the side, the snow-robed woman wore a faint smile and spoke to them warmly like an elder. She then said, I'm Madam Situ. Since you were invited here by the Lord, I can naturally hand Yen over to you. As he spoke, he took out 2 small bags from his sleeves, each containing 100 crystal stones. Such a sum of money was a great fortune to an early-stage fairy. I'll have to trouble you to take care of Yen. Yen come here. The beautiful woman waved at the crowd in the distance. The crowd parted, and a beautiful girl in bright clothes walked out. She was about 16 years old, and had a slender figure. Although she wasn't even half as pretty as Lady Situ, she was still pleasing to the eye. Her eyes were very bright and full of spirit. She took light steps, and a bright smile hung on her face. Mother. Yen these are the experts who will protect you along the way. Remember to listen to them, Madam Situ said. The young girl sized up Suyu with her big eyes, then curled her small mouth and said, You aren't as powerful as me. Yen don't be rude. They were invited by that lord, so they can't be wrong. Madam Situ's expression was solemn and dignified. The girl stuck out her tongue. I know. Then, he waved his hand at Suyu and Yuan Yingying and chuckled. Let's go. Let me introduce my clansmen to you. Looking from afar, they were all young men and women who looked somewhat similar. They seemed to be members of the Situ clan. From the looks of it, the Situ family had made the same decision as the Shangguan family, giving all the spots to their family's children. Elderly, we can set off now, the Situ family head said. Elderly opened his eyes and took out a finger-sized bird from his sleeves. It was unknown what material was used to craft it, but it emitted a powerful aura, which was at the early stage of the fairy realm. Puppet? Suyu was startled, and he recalled the expert who made puppets, Yu Tianxi. The puppet bird was tossed into the air and grew to a size of 100 feet. Everyone present, including Madame Situ, also followed the procession. On the puppet bird, Yen chattered incessantly. She was extremely lively, and she really livened up the atmosphere. Suyu and Yuan Yingying were both wearing conical bamboo hats, which made them seem quite mysterious. Moreover, they had been brought here by an elder whom they knew, so they respected them greatly and didn't underestimate their cultivations. The journey was rather harmonious. This flight lasted for half a day. They crossed a long river, which was filled with large chunks of ice. We have arrived at the frozen river, so we should quickly enter the Red Blood Palace's territory, Elderly said. The Sky Castle was the closest to the Red Blood Palace among the many regions, so they could enter it in just half a day. It's already dark, so it's inconvenient for us to enter it. Let's rest here for the night, Elderly said. Madame Situ nodded. Okay, it's really inconvenient for us to enter at night during this special period. After the puppet bird landed, the group of people set up camp beside the frozen river. Since they had divine master experts like Madame Situ and Elderly among them, they didn't need to fear any danger. Suyu and Yuan Yingying were both surprised by this. Since they had already entered the Red Blood Palace's territory, why didn't they continue onward? At this moment, Yen'er came over with 2 roasted lamb legs and gave one to Su Yu and Yuan Yingying. She then said, "We can reach the Red Blood Palace by noon tomorrow. It's my first time going there." Yen'er smiled, her eyes filled with longing. Su Yu asked, "Since we still have half a day, why don't we travel through the night?" Yen'er shook her head and looked at the pitch-black Red Blood Palace. She then said, "You don't know this, but the Red Blood Palace has recently activated the Ice Soul Divine Dream Formation, and it has set it up in many regions. If you are careless for even a moment, you will fall into it, and you won't be able to come out. This is especially the case at night, as the illusory formation's effects will be magnified, and even elderly won't dare to enter it rashly." Su Yu squinted his eyes when he heard her. He had really detected several hidden auras. The Ice Soul Divine Dream Formation was known as the 18 Blessed and Heavenly Lands #1 Illusory Formation. In the past, Su Yu and the Almighty Divine Master Lu Chui had fallen into it. Its might was still fresh in Su Yu's mind. However, the fact that it had only been activated recently meant that the Red Blood Palace had already detected the Dark Force's restlessness, so they had started to take precautions against it. "You can continue eating. I will go and accompany my mother." Yen'er hopped over to Madame Sidu's side. Su Yu revealed a faint smile. "What a lively little girl! Brother Su, do you like such a girl?" Yuan Yingying glared at Su Yu and puffed up her cheeks angrily. It seemed like she was telling him that if he dared to answer her, she would cry in front of him. Su Yu smiled. All of a sudden, Su Yu felt a burning pain in his right palm. When he opened his palm, a grave look appeared on his face. He saw that the flame seal was unexpectedly burning. It was burning, and it seemed like a small flame was dancing on his palm. Su Yu's life force was quickly being devoured by the small flame. Moreover, every time it devoured a bit of Su Yu's life force, it would become stronger. The flame became more intense, and it seemed like it wanted to burn Su Yu. Shock appeared on Su Yu's face, as such a sudden occurrence gave him a great sense of crisis. A shadow of death slowly engulfed his heart. Bang! Bang! Su Yu's heart was beating unceasingly, and it seemed like it would jump out of his chest. An ominous feeling welled up in the depths of his soul. The divine nine-dragon cauldron was also shaking intensely, emitting many dragon roars that reverberated in the depths of his soul. It seemed like it was warning him. Even the divine nine-dragon cauldron was warning him. This was the first time it had ever happened. Even when Su Yu had run into danger before, it hadn't been as intense as this one. As he recalled Xia Jingyu's warning, Su Yu's expression changed drastically. The life or death crisis that she had mentioned had finally arrived. Shocked, Su Yu tried to extinguish the flame in his palm. However, just like before, regardless of whether it was his vital energy or soul energy, he was unable to affect the flame. It was as if it existed in the void and was not affected by anything. As the flame became bigger and bigger, his life force, which wasn't much to begin with, was reduced to less than 70%. In another 2 hours, his life force would be completely devoured, and his body would be destroyed. I must break through immediately. I mustn't wait any longer. Su Yu's gaze became grave. Since he couldn't extinguish the flame, he could only think of a way to increase his life force, and the only way to do so was to break through to the fairy realm. Swoosh! Su Yu soared into the sky, then turned his head around and said, "Sirs, I will leave for a while. I will surely come back tomorrow morning." After he spoke, he dived into the eternal ice river. Su Yu took the grade 4 fairy expansion pill while he was in the ice river. When the elixir entered his body, a scorching hot aura almost caused Su Yu to spit out the elixir. The scorching hot liquid traveled from his throat to his lungs and reached his dantian. When the scorching hot liquid entered his external dantian, it caused his vital energy lake to boil. The The scorching hot energy wasn't something that his external dantian could contain. After a short while, the scorching hot energy passed through his external dantian and reached his internal dantian. In just an hour, it had filled his whole internal dantian. As his internal dantian was affected by the scorching hot energy, it quickly melted. It was like a sealed space that was being destroyed by an eruption of lava. Bang! As a loud noise echoed, his whole internal dantian suddenly exploded and expanded to a size of an acre. The 3 vital energy crystals shattered and turned into liquid, which flowed into his body. What happened next was the same as before. The world's spiritual energy crazily flowed into Su Yu's body and turned into raindrops that watered the dried-up lake. At this moment, Su Yu's whole right arm was burning, and it seemed like it was becoming more and more intense. It was also at this moment that his internal dantian took shape. It was similar to the external dantian, standing side by side with it. Both of his dantians had turned into lakes. At this moment, Su Yu's vital energy was comparable to a grade 2 fairy's. Rumble! All of a sudden, a mass of black clouds gathered above Su Yu's head, and a giant bolt of lightning, which was as thick as a bowl, appeared intermittently. It was the heavenly tribulation. The tribulation was about to begin. Once it succeeded, he would completely break through to the fairy realm. Roar! As a lightning dragon descended, Su Yu pointed his finger at it. The thunder herb armor floated above his head and absorbed the roaring thunder. At this moment, the second and third bolt of lightning descended. In the eyes of the half-fairy, the disastrous thunder, which could destroy the world, was easily dealt with by Su Yu. 3 bolts of disastrous thunder was the limit for breaking through to the fairy realm. As the disastrous thunder dispersed, a gentle beam of light shone on Su Yu's body from the depths of the sky. A warm current flowed throughout Su Yu's body. His skin, blood, flesh, internal organs, and every other part of his body were bathed in the gentle light. His body was transforming both internally and externally. As his soul was illuminated by the light, it continued to grow. Su Yu, who once had the soul power of a grade 1 fairy, had his soul power increase once again, reaching the level of a grade 2 fairy. His physical body also continued to strengthen, from his flesh to his bones. From the body of a half-fairy to that of a grade 1 fairy, if he used the first dragon's body, it would be equivalent to that of a grade 4 fairy, with the power of 4 elephants. The benefits of passing the tribulation were endless. Su Yu, who had transformed both internally and externally, had his lifespan extended greatly. In normal circumstances, he could live for 300 years. Moreover, the extra 300 years of lifespan that he had gained caused the life force in his body to overflow once again. Crack! His old skin peeled off, revealing his jade-like skin, which was as soft as a woman's. His body's surface was filled with cracks. Soon after, a soft sound echoed out as the cracks all over his body exploded, while the old skin on his body's surface disappeared. It was a handsome young man, who seemed like a celestial being from a painting. 3-dimensional facial features, bright and deep eyes, and that head of white hair, gave people a devilishly handsome feeling. Su Yu opened his eyes and let out a long breath. He had finally managed to recover his youthful body. When he raised his head, he found that he had already been washed away by the ice-sealed river. Since Yuan Yingying and the others hadn't chased after him, it was obvious that they were far away from him. However, when Su Yu noticed the raging flames that were still burning on his arm, his expression became gloomy once again. He wondered, how can I extinguish these strange flames? However, what happened next caused Su Yu's expression to change even more. His body, which had just recovered its youthful body, started aging at a speed that could be observed by the naked eye. In the twinkling of an eye, he was once again called a white-haired old man. What's going on? Su Yu's eyes flickered as he examined his lifespan. But why is my body? After Su Yu pondered this for a moment, his left eye shone with a purple light. Then, a strange thing happened as his body returned to its youthful state. Then, he used his time power once again and returned to the old man's body. He could freely switch between the two states at will. It seems like this is a side effect of me using the time-space reversal technique too much. My youthful body and my current body exist in two different space-time nodes. An odd look appeared on Su Yu's face. This didn't affect Su Yu's cultivation at all. On the contrary, it gave him some unexpected benefit. This was because his youthful body and his old body could be switched between each other, and his identity could be hidden. Su Yu's heart shook as he returned to his old body. The young Su Yu was wanted by the Central Prefecture, so it would be better for him to not show his face in public. After Su Yu solved this problem, he was just about to deal with the troublesome flames when a wisp of heat suddenly transmitted from the depths of the sky. When Su Yu raised his head to look, his pupils contracted. In the sky, after the disastrous thunder's dark clouds had dissipated, a burning cloud of fire had strangely appeared. That's right, a burning cloud of fire. A huge ball of flames was burning above his head. The cloud of fire contained the will of the world, and its might was many times stronger than the disastrous thunder. The wisps of flames caused Su Yu's heart to palpitate, and he felt like he was about to be burned to ashes. This was a feeling that he would only feel when facing an all-creation old monster. Su Yu's eyes were filled with flames, and his heart trembled. Is this the disastrous fire? Disastrous thunder was common, but disastrous fire was uncommon, and it was even rare. Even when almighty divine masters went through their tribulations, disastrous fire was rarely seen. Only when all creation old monsters went through their tribulations would terrible disastrous fire appear. The destructive power contained in the disastrous fire before him was extraordinary. This is a tribulation for all creation old monsters, so why is it happening to me? Su Yu couldn't believe it. He had already gone through the tribulation, so why did it appear a second time? Moreover, it was a tribulation for all creation old monsters. Could this be the fatal Great Tribulation that Xia Jingyu had mentioned? Looking at the burning flame on his arm, Su Yu raised his brows. Could it be related to this wisp of flame? Right at that moment, an apathetic voice drifted into his ears. I found it. At the same time, the 5 rings of golden light emitted a dazzling radiance, illuminating the night sky with dazzling golden light. Su Yu raised his head and looked at it. The disastrous fire split open and formed a vortex, from which 5 golden suns came out. As he used his soul eyes to look, he saw 5 majestic figures within the golden light. Each of them was wearing golden armor and had a crown on their head, which was adorned with the sun, moon, and stars. As the 5 of them descended, the world shook and all living beings fell silent. Su Yu's pupils contracted to the size of needles. All creation old monsters. Chapter 771. None of them were weaker than Blood Emperor. They were 5 supreme existences that were comparable to Blood Emperor. Will you come with us or will you die? The Bright Light Guard's leader asked calmly. He looked down on Su Yu as if he was looking at an ant. Su Yu's pupils contracted, and a sense of crisis surged in his heart. Central Prefecture's king. When he first came to Jiuzhou, he had not offended any forces. The only one who could send 5 all creation's old monsters to kill him was the Central Prefecture's king. In order to get the divine 9-dragon cauldron, he had almost risked everything. Everything. Clenching his teeth, Su Yu unleashed the power of time without hesitation. A purple light swirled around and froze the surrounding space for 3 breaths' time. Realm. The 5 all creation's old monsters raised their eyebrows in surprise. The leader of the all creation's old monsters said calmly, "The person our king wants to capture is indeed extraordinary. However, with the absolute suppression of his cultivation, all schemes will be futile." Break. The leader of the all creation's old monsters took a step forward, and a wave of raging flames that covered a radius of 10,000 miles fell from the sky. The frozen space-time that enveloped them shattered. Suyu felt a sharp pain in his left eye, and a trickle of blood flowed out. The all-creation old monsters were too powerful, and Suyu couldn't obstruct them at all. However, he didn't plan to throw himself into their trap and fight them impulsively. While activating the power of time, Suyu's body was engulfed by the wine-red radiance of his right eye. The power of space engulfed his whole body as he entered the space transportation. You tried to teleport in front of all creations. You are ignorant and fearless, the leader of the all creation's old monsters said calmly. Since you have resisted repeatedly, we can only bring your corpse back. The all creation old monster, who was the leader of the all creation old monsters, clenched his fist. All of a sudden, the spatial power around Suyu's body became chaotic and distorted intensely. However, Suyu had already anticipated this, as he had already learned about the all-creation old monster's mastery of spatial power when he fought against the Blood Emperor. Right at that moment, Suyu shouted in a low voice, "Space Vortex." A rotating space suddenly appeared in front of Suyu. This spatial whirlpool was enough to cross millions of miles of mountains and rivers. Suyu did not know where he would be transported to, but it was better than staying here and seeking death. There's no point in struggling. The leader of the all creation's old monsters glared at the whirlpool, and an overwhelming force of all creations struck the whirlpool. The whirlpool surged and was about to shatter. However, right at that moment, Suyu flicked his sleeves and a thread, which was hard to be seen by the naked eye, appeared. It streaked forward and cut the all creation's power in half, which then brushed past the space vortex. Past. The all-creation old monster's expression became gloomy. He didn't expect that Suyu would have a mysterious treasure that could block an all-creation's strike. The Great Cosmos Dragon Lock Formation. The all-creation old monster's expression was calm. The other four all-creation's old monsters finally made their move. The four of them weaved hand signs at the same time and pointed toward the 9 heavens with the all-creation's old monster in the lead. Suddenly, the surrounding space gradually solidified, as if it was about to be frozen. The rotating speed of the space vortex created by Suyu slowed down drastically, and it trembled slightly as if it was about to collapse. Not good, this space is going to be locked. Suyu was very sensitive to spatial changes, and he could clearly sense that the space within 10,000 miles was solidifying. The spatial energy couldn't circulate, which meant that the space was frozen. The teleportation failed. Clenching his teeth, Suyu dived into the space vortex. Suddenly, Suyu felt as if he was in the middle of a tornado. Puff! While he was teleporting, the spatial energy suddenly became chaotic, and the space vortex collapsed. Shock appeared on Suyu's face. Such an explosive spatial energy was enough to crush him. At such a critical juncture, Suyu clenched his teeth, took out the underworld pearl, and smashed it below him. How could the space tunnel withstand the underworld pearl's attack? It shattered on the spot, and Suyu fell out of the space tunnel, returning to the present world. Splash! Suyu's body became unstable, and he fell into the river. It was bone-piercing cold, and the water was filled with ice that would never melt. Frozen river! Suyu's face became gloomy. Not good, I didn't teleport too far. Although the Great Cosmos Dragon Lock Formation couldn't stop Suyu's teleportation in time, it still weakened the teleportation's range. At the same time, Suyu's face became gloomy. Although he was teleported, there was still a wisp of disastrous fire hovering above his head. Most of the disastrous fire had been destroyed by the 5 all-creation old monsters, but there were still 2 wisps of disastrous fire hovering above his head. At this moment, Suyu realized that these wisps of disastrous fire originated from the leading all-creation old monster. It was unknown what kind of magical power he had used to transfer the disastrous fire that he had gone through to Suyu's head. That was why he was suffering from the disastrous fire that was beyond redemption. Moreover, he could sense Su Yu's specific location through the disastrous fire. With just a thought, he could cross the space to attack Su Yu. Su Yu's heart gradually became gloomy, and he knew that he couldn't even escape. However, at this moment a melodious voice, which was as sweet as an oriole's, drifted into his ears. Well, it's really strange. Why would a trifling fairy's tribulation produce disastrous fire? The voice came so suddenly that Su Yu didn't notice it at all. When he raised his head to take a look, he was shocked. At the edge of the river, there was a beautiful young girl in a purple dress. She was bending her waist and staring curiously at Su Yu, who was in the river. Su Yu was shocked. They were only 3 feet apart, yet she had appeared like a ghost, and Su Yu hadn't noticed her at all. What shocked him even more was that he could faintly see a mysterious crown on the young girl's head, which had the sun, moon, and stars carved on it. All creation, old monster. Su Yu was startled. The beautiful young girl in front of him was unexpectedly an all-creation old monster. The young girl's eyes were clear and pure. They were like sapphires, which emitted a beautiful radiance. You have good eyesight. You know that I'm an all-creation old monster. What was even more surprising was that the young girl seemed to be able to understand Su Yu's thoughts. Su Yu's expression changed slightly. Mind-reading technique? Is this a young girl's talent? It's not a talent. It's just my domain. The young girl squatted down and curiously examined Su Yu. My premonition is telling me that if I want to find my enemy, I should come here. Are you the enemy I'm looking for? The young girl lightly blew on Su Yu's bamboo hat and straw cape, causing them to disintegrate like dust, revealing Su Yu's old body. I'm not. The young girl shook her head in disappointment. She only had a portrait of Su Yu when he was young, which was the complete opposite of the old man in front of her. Su Yu's heart shuddered. Is she also, however, this thought flashed through his mind. The young lady in front of him had the ability to read minds, so he couldn't just casually think about it. Well, it seems like you are trying to hide something. Do you know who I'm looking for? The young girl squinted her eyes and stared at Su Yu. Su Yu shook his head calmly. His heart was as clear as a mirror. I don't know. The young girl looked at Su Yu suspiciously. My premonition isn't wrong, and this place will surely help me find my enemy. Even if you aren't the enemy, you will still be an opportunity for me to find my enemy. Get up. With a wave of her hand, Su Yu was forcefully brought out of the river and stood in front of the young girl. Swoosh. The young girl opened a portrait, and a face of Su Yu's youthful body appeared before her. Su Yu's gaze was calm, and he wore a pensive look as he thought to himself, I seem to have seen him somewhere before. However, this young girl is too naive. Even if I knew, why would I provoke trouble for him? Where is his body? Su Yu was obviously thinking about this on purpose. However, the young girl treated his words as his true thoughts, and her pretty face became ice-cold. You really have seen him before. Su Yu was startled, and he cursed her inwardly. Damn it! She can read minds. What should I do? Will she kill me? The young girl immediately replied, Why would I want to kill you? As long as you tell me where he went, not only will I spare you, but I will also help you get rid of the disastrous flames. Su Yu was overjoyed, and he extended his burning right arm. You can even get rid of this? The young girl nodded. It's easy. Fine, I will tell you, Su Yu said with a delighted look. But you must first help me get rid of a hidden danger. The young girl furrowed her brows. She then thought to herself, this person seems very experienced and shrewd, so what if he gave me the wrong direction on purpose? Give me your hand, the young girl said. Su Yu extended his right arm, and the young girl's fair and soft hand touched Su Yu's palm. The flames were immediately extinguished. Even the flame imprint on his palm, which couldn't be erased, disappeared without a trace. The 5 golden lights, who were countless miles away, were chasing after Su Yu at high speed. All of a sudden, the body of the leading all-creation old monster shuddered, and a trace of blood seeped out of his mouth. Shock and solemnity appeared in his eyes. "Wait!" The 5 all-creation old monsters came to a sudden stop, and the leading all-creation old monster said, "An expert is here, and he erased my imprint." "What? If he can erase Big Brother's imprint, then his cultivation must be far above Big Brother's. There aren't more than 10 people in the Central Prefecture who can erase Big Brother's imprint. That lad is so lucky." The leading all-creation old monster stared in Su Yu's direction, and his gaze became gloomy. "Big Brother, should we chase after him or not?" The leading all-creation old monster's eyes were filled with fear, and he muttered to himself irresolutely for a moment before shaking his head. "We won't chase after him for now. Although this lad's imprint was erased, a trace of it still fused with his flesh. Since it's in his bloodline, I can vaguely sense his general direction, so I'm not afraid of losing him." After the young girl extinguished the flames, she raised her head to look at the sky and clenched her fist toward the disastrous flames. Immediately, the 2 wisps of disastrous flames flew down and twined around her fair fingers. It's easy to get rid of the disastrous flames, but if you don't get tempered by the heavenly tribulation, when you break through to the divine master realm, the resistance will be 10 times greater than that of an ordinary person. So, it's best for you to bear with it and refine these 2 wisps of disastrous flames. Delight appeared on Su Yu's face, and his heart was filled with sincere gratitude. This lass is extraordinarily kind, and refining the disastrous flames must be somewhat troublesome for her. If it were an ordinary person, dispelling the disastrous flames would have been an act of benevolence. Yet, she still took the initiative to help me. Su Yu wasn't trying to curry favor with this woman, but rather, he was sighing with emotion from the bottom of his heart. The young girl's face became slightly flushed, and she glared at him with her almond-shaped eyes. "Calm your heart and calm your mind. It will be slightly painful, but I will help you refine it, so your life won't be in danger." Chapter 772. Now that he had an all-creation old monster protecting him, he would be much safer. Swoosh! The young girl pointed her finger at Su Yu and sent a wisp of tribulation flame into his body. The tribulation flame instantly turned into a destructive, raging flame that engulfed Su Yu. His body started burning from the inside out, turning him into a man of raging flames. Su Yu's mouth couldn't help but twitch due to the pain caused by the raging flames. However, Su Yu's mind was still clear, and his mind wasn't affected. When he had reconstructed his dantian in the past, Su Yu had suffered great pain, and it had been several times more intense than what he was experiencing now. Now, the tribulation flame wasn't that painful. The young girl blinked her eyes. "Well? Is your mental endurance really this strong?" She couldn't believe it, as many all-creation old monsters had suffered great pain when they went through the tribulation flame. Most of them had even fainted. Yet, this little fairy was able to clench his teeth and endure it. "It's better this way," the young girl said. Under her control, the tribulation flame burned every part of Su Yu's body. As a sizzling sound echoed out, the clothes on his body were turned into ashes. His white hair and every part of his body were being burned by the tribulation flame. After his body was destroyed, it was quickly reborn. This repeated cycle caused his body to be tempered to the extreme. Su Yu clenched his teeth, as he felt that his body was becoming stronger and more spirited. This process lasted for half a cup of tea's time. When the tribulation flame was extinguished, Su Yu's body was as black as charcoal. With a slight tremble, the burnt surface of his body was shattered, revealing his aged skin. However, his skin still had a faint red color, which was the color of the tribulation flame. If one carefully examined Su Yu's body, they would discover that every part of his body, including his blood energy channels and bones, contained a scorching aura. As Su Yu pondered this for a moment, he thrust his fist forward, and a raging flame suddenly emerged from it. Although it wasn't as terrifying as the tribulation flame, it was still more powerful than ordinary flames. After the tribulation flame burns you, a small amount of its power will fuse with your body, allowing you to obtain a fire-based constitution. In the future, when you choose a cultivation technique or try to comprehend a profound meaning, you should try to walk toward the fire-based path. Suyu nodded. He could feel that his body's power had reached a whole new level. From the previous 4 elephants' power, it had reached 4.5 elephants' power, or even 5 elephants' power. There's still a sliver of tribulation fire left. This sliver is used to refine your soul. It will help you strengthen your soul. It's something that can only be found by luck, the young woman said as she looked at the last sliver of tribulation fire. In the world of the 9 prefectures, there were very few ways to temper one's soul. Most of them were lost in ancient times. The tempering during a breakthrough was especially rare. Suyu nodded, and the young girl sent the disastrous flame into his head. All of a sudden, the disastrous flames entered Suyu's soul. His soul far surpassed that of his peers, and he also had the protection of the divine 9-dragon cauldron. The pain that the tribulation flame brought him was far inferior to that of his physical body. Suyu didn't even furrow his brows, and he only felt a slight burning pain in his mind. The girl became even more curious. She muttered in her heart, "What's wrong with this old grandpa?" After the time it took to brew a cup of tea, the disastrous fire dissipated. Suyu opened his eyes, feeling refreshed. His soul power rose once again, reaching the level of a level 3 fairy. If the tribulation fire had not been dispersed, his soul force would have increased in explosive power. Unfortunately, there were only 2 strands. "Tell me, where did this person go?" the young girl asked as she pointed at Suyu, who was in the picture scroll. Suyu replied, "The Red Blood Palace." "The Red Blood Palace?" The young girl raised her brows. "It's possible. He killed Uncle Shwedi and knew that he couldn't escape this calamity. So, he probably escaped to the Red Blood Palace to hide." After she spoke, the young girl turned around and left. "Senior, do you plan to attack the Red Blood Palace?" Suyu asked. The young girl was startled, and she shook her head. "I can't expose my identity." She had escaped without the Central Prefecture's king's knowledge, and she wanted to take revenge on Suyu. If her identity was exposed, the Central Prefecture's king would surely send someone to invite her back, and she wouldn't be able to kill Suyu. "Since that's the case, why don't you come with me and sneak into the Red Blood Palace to look for him?" Suyu's eyes flickered. This woman was an all-creation expert, and if he didn't know her whereabouts, Suyu was worried that he would expose himself and be seen through by her. Even now, Suyu still didn't know how much information this woman knew about him besides his appearance. Sneak in? That sounds reasonable. The young girl thought about it carefully and felt that it was feasible. It seemed like she was still inexperienced. "Fine, you will sneak me into the Red Blood Palace, then help me look for this person. If you can find any traces of him, you will be heavily rewarded," the young girl said. "Let's go. Take me to the Red Blood Palace." The corners of Suyu's mouth twitched, and he pointed at the top of her head. "Does the Red Blood Palace dare to recruit an all-creation old monster as an outer sanctum disciple?" The young girl was startled, and her face became slightly flushed. She glared at Suyu and said, "I know. You don't need to tell me." As she spoke, the crown atop her head disappeared, and her cultivation was suppressed. She then revealed a level 2 fairy realm cultivation, which seemed quite ordinary. "Can you still understand what I'm thinking now?" Suyu looked at the young girl and asked her inwardly. The young girl furrowed her brows and asked, "Why are you looking at me?" Suyu heaved a sigh of relief. It seemed like even her mind-reading ability was limited by the suppression of her cultivation. Otherwise, if she accidentally exposed what she was thinking about, he would be in great danger. It was only at this moment that Suyu sized up the young girl. Her almond-shaped eyes were reflecting blue light, and her eyebrows were like distant mountains. She also had long eyelashes, and her fair face was flushed. At first glance, she seemed like a pretty neighbor's little sister. She had a tall and curvaceous body, and even her purple robe couldn't conceal her proud body. If Suyu hadn't known about it in advance, he wouldn't have believed that this neighbor's little sister was an all-creation old monster. Wait. Suyu came back to his senses as he stared at her robe. Purple. A purple robe. Xia Jingyu had once said that a purple object would appear in his path, and if he could grasp it, he might be able to resolve his crisis and change his fate. He had assumed that it was an object, and he didn't expect that it would be a person. It was also the young girl who had erased the imprint and dissolved the disastrous flames, which had helped Suyu resolve his crisis. It seemed like his decision to keep her by his side wasn't wrong, and he must grasp this opportunity. My name is Suyu Xian. What about you? Suyu asked. The young girl mulled it over for a moment, then said, Han Xian, I want to change my name. What should I change my name to? Suyu looked at her elegant purple robe, then said with a faint smile, Why don't you call me Zixuan? Zixuan? The young girl lowered her head and looked at her own purple robe, then revealed a faint smile and said, Okay, I like purple, so I'll call you Zixuan. The next morning, the sky was just beginning to brighten. Madame Situ furrowed her brows, as Suyu still hadn't returned even after a whole night had passed. Yingying, did your companion tell you why he left? Madame Situ asked. Yuan Yingying shook her head, then looked at the end of the river. Her eyes, which hadn't slept for the whole night, were bloodshot. Elderly furrowed his brows and said, Madame Situ, I'm afraid that we can't wait any longer. Your Situ family waited for these two people for 3 days, and time is of the essence. If we still can't reach the Red Blood Palace by noon, then the test's registration period will end. Madame Situ became anxious when she heard his words. She had finally found 2 suitable people for Yenner, yet now, they had to run away. At this moment, Madame Situ and Elderly looked at the sky at the same time. They could see 2 people flying toward them from the end of the river. One of them was a level 2 fairy, while the other was a level 1 fairy. When they neared her, the anger on Madame Situ's face disappeared and was replaced by delight. Suyu had unexpectedly advanced to the fairy realm in just 1 night. But, what's going on with the purple-clothed woman? After they landed on the ground, Suyu cupped his hands at them and apologized. Madame Situ, Elderly, I'm sorry for making you wait for so long. I went to meet up with this friend of mine, but I ran into a heavenly tribulation on the way. That's why I came back late. Elderly looked at Zi Xian and sized her up before he looked at Madame Situ and said, Madam, I can't increase the quota at will. Madame Situ chuckled and said, It doesn't matter, as I already left 3 quotas for Suyu. Now that there's an extra quota, I can give it to this young lady. She had originally asked him to bring 2 people with him, but Suyu had only brought 1 person with him, so this quota had always been empty. Others assumed that Suyu had come here to meet up with his friend, but only Yuan Yingying knew that this wasn't the case. Who was this pretty girl who looked like a neighbor's little sister? Yuan Yingying got lost in her thoughts, as she felt a sense of crisis. Brother Su, you worried me to death. Yuan Yingying walked over to Suyu and hugged him affectionately. She then squeezed her ample breasts lightly. Zi Xian looked at him calmly and asked curiously, Why did she call you brother? Suyu replied calmly, Some problems occurred during my cultivation, which caused my body to seem old. But I'm actually just 18 years old. Zi Xian didn't take his words to heart, as she had heard many similar situations before. Since that's the case, let's set off. Elderly didn't hesitate any longer, as he activated the puppet bird and flew toward the Red Blood Palace. After half a day in the Red Blood Palace, it was a giant fort that was embedded in the boundless wilderness. Not only was it protected by a powerful formation, but it was also guarded by countless experts. Suyu had already detected at least 10 Divine Master experts' auras. This is the Red Blood Palace's outer sanctum, And it's located outside the fairy confining forest, Elderly said. You will only be qualified to enter the inner sanctum after you become an inner sanctum's disciple. The outer sanctum is just a place for you to grow and cultivate. Of course, this is only if you can pass the test and become an outer sanctum's disciple. Suyu asked Yen, what's the fairy confining forest? Yen blinked her bright eyes. Brother Su, haven't you heard of it? The fairy confining forest is a primeval forest that covers most of Jiuzhou. It's boundless, and even an all-creation old monster might not be able to reach its end. There are many powerful demonic beasts within it, and the deeper you go, the more powerful they will be. There are even all-creation realm demonic beasts there. In fact, according to ancient records, there was once a terrifying demonic emperor that surpassed the all-creation realm. A demonic emperor that surpassed the all-creation realm? Suyu's heart shuddered slightly. As he had expected, there was an even higher realm above the all-creation realm. The Red Blood Palace's outer palace is at the edge of the fairy confining forest, while the inner palace is in its depth. However, its depths are just at the edge of the fairy confining forest. Suyu nodded. After the puppet bird landed, everyone gathered on a stone pillar. Suyu swept the surroundings with his gaze. There were 10 stone pillars outside the palace, each of which had a circumference of several thousand feet. Apart from them, the other 9 pillars were all guarded by people. Suyu saw some familiar people in one of them. It was the Shangguan family's master, the Shangguan family's juniors, Zhang Fan and the Shangguan siblings. They also looked over at them, but as Suyu and Yuan Yingying had changed their appearances, they didn't recognize them. Oh, Madam Situ, I trust you have been well since we last met. A warm and cheerful voice drifted over from the nearby stone pillar. Chapter 773. Madam Situ was already middle-aged, but she was still beautiful, dignified, and charming. When she was young, she was a stunning, peerless woman, and she was a goddess that many people yearned for. Later, she married into the Situ family, and her husband died during an expedition shortly after they got married. From then on, she became the family's pillar. Her beauty was still coveted, but it was fortunate that she was strong enough, so most people didn't dare to covet her. Except for the person in front of her. It was the Shao family's master, Shao Yueming. He was once an outer sanctum disciple of the Red Blood Palace, and she had admired him since she was young. However, Shao Yueming had evil intentions, so she didn't like him. Madame Situ's gaze became sullen as she said, Shao family's master, you don't need to worry about me. Shao Yueming smiled and said, Madame Situ, it seems like your family's juniors aren't anything special. I heard that you spent a lot of money to find geniuses and escort them into the outer sanctum. So, why don't you beg me? Because of our past relationship, I won't just stand idly by. Madame Situ's tone was cold, as she knew that if he begged her, he might have some improper thoughts. There is no need for that. The Shao family should just take care of our family's juniors. Displeasure appeared on Madame Situ's face. Shao Yueming acted as if he didn't see this, and his gaze swept over the family's juniors. He then swept over Yen before his gaze fell on the 2 men in bamboo hats next to her. He then smiled faintly and said, Well, is this what you're relying on? Is it? I think it's a bit difficult. How about I let the juniors of the clan protect Yen? I know that she is your most beloved daughter. His threatening words made Madame Situ's expression turn ice-cold. Shao Yueming, enough is enough. She swept the Shao family's juniors with her gaze, and her heart shuddered. The Shao family's juniors were full of talents, and they had around 20 of them. All of them were level 1 fairies, while there were 5 or 6 level 2 fairies, 2 level 3 fairies, and 1 level 4 fairy. She knew him. He was from the Shao family. They were the Shao family's strongest geniuses. However, what shocked her even more was that there was also a level 5 fairy woman. She had a big bow on her back, and her whole body emitted a cold aura. Hee, I forgot to introduce you. This is the disciple of my Shao clan's branch, Shao Li. Hurry up and greet Lady Situ. Shao Li's expression was grave and stern as she nodded at Madame Situ indifferently. His gaze landed on Yen and a playful smile appeared on his face. Lady Situ's expression changed drastically. Without a doubt, they had set their eyes on Yen. They clearly knew that Yen was the only bloodline of the Situ family's legal wife, and they were prepared to eliminate her completely. Xiao Yueming, how dare you! Lady Situ's killing intent soared. The corners of Xiao Yueming's mouth curled up into a mocking smile. I didn't say anything, why are you so agitated? Then, he looked at Su Yu and Yuan Yingying and said, You must protect Miss Situ. With that, he turned around with a satisfied smile. But all of a sudden, an indifferent reply came from behind. You don't have to worry about it, Shao Clan Master. You should take care of your own juniors. At this moment, the families and forces on the other pillars were watching coldly from the sidelines and did not interfere. Even the Shangguan clan did not dare to speak up when they saw the Situ clan being bullied. The reason was that the Shao family was ranked higher than the Shangguan family. The Shangguan clan was ranked second among the 18 sects, and above them was the Shao clan, which was ranked first. Although the crowd couldn't bear to see this happen, they still didn't dare to speak up. What if the Shao family hated them out of jealousy and ordered their juniors to suppress them during the test? Many of the factions were angry, but they didn't dare to speak up. Yet a reckless guy dared to talk back to them. All of them looked at the man beside Yen who was wearing a bamboo hat. Xiao Yueming didn't expect that someone would dare to talk back to him. When he turned his head around and saw Su Yu wearing a bamboo hat, he curled up the corners of his mouth and revealed a faint smile. The younger generation will surpass us in time. It seems like you are quite confident in protecting Yen. It's still early, so why don't you let our juniors have a spar with you? That way, they will be able to save their lives during the test. Lady Situ's expression became ice-cold. Xiao Yueming, aren't you ashamed enough to bicker with a junior? Xiao Yueming didn't care about this at all. Madam, you are overthinking this. It's just a spar, and it won't cause any harm. Xiao Hu, you should go and deal with the opponent's expert. Remember, don't beat him to death. Swoosh. A stocky youth strode out of the crowd, and every step he took caused the ground to tremble. His cultivation was at the level 2 fairy realm, but judging from the blood energy emanating from his body, it wasn't any weaker than a 2.5 elephant's fleshly body. As such, none of the level 2 fairies dared to face his fist head-on. This is a spar? His cultivation is higher than mine, and he's even a body refiner. Lady Situ clenched her teeth, while hatred welled up in her heart. Xiao Yueming had intentionally humiliated the Situ family in front of so many people. She couldn't help but feel resentful. Xiao Yueming revealed a faint smile and said, I'm just anxious for Yen. If I can't even deal with such an opponent, how can I bear the heavy responsibility of protecting Yen? In fact, both he and Lady Situ understood that Xiao Yueming wanted to use this opportunity to see Su Yu's capabilities, so that he wouldn't fail in killing Yen. Elder Li spoke calmly, Xiao family's master, the test is just around the corner, so you shouldn't use force. If you want to spar, you can do it after the test. Elder Li was the Situ family's envoy, so he obviously didn't want to see them being bullied. Lady Situ looked at him gratefully. However, when he just finished speaking, an old man, who was wearing a silver robe and was standing on one of the Shao family's pillars, laughed heartily and said, Elder Li, you are worrying too much. A spar before the test can raise people's spirits, and it will be beneficial for the test. Why do you have to obstruct me? Elder Li's expression became gloomy as he looked at him. This was the Situ family's envoy, Elder Tong, who had a higher position than him in the outer sanctum's ranking. When Su Yu saw that everyone was put in a difficult position, he strode forward and revealed a faint smile as he said, What this elder said isn't wrong. There's nothing wrong with exercising before the test. Madam, I will take my leave first. Swoosh. Su Yu tapped the ground with the tip of his foot, streaked across the sky, and landed on one of the Shao family's pillars. His action of advancing forward instead of retreating startled the crowd. He's full of vigor. Youngsters should be like this. The elders on the other pillars, who were on Lady Sidhu's side, couldn't help but cheer. Originally, it was the Shao family that was provoking the Sidhu family, but now it seemed like it was the Sidhu family that was provoking them. Xiao Yueming examined Su Yu calmly, then waved his hand and said, Xiao Hu, it seems like this expert is quite powerful, so you don't need to hold back. Just fight him with your whole power. Xiao Hu grinned and said, I understand. As he spoke, he strode forward and looked down at Su Yu. I will defeat you with just a single move. Iron Dragon enters the sea. Xiao Hu revolved his whole body's vital energy and imbued it into his fists, causing his fists to reach their strongest state, which contained 2 elephants' worth of power. If a level 2 fairy was struck by his fists, they would most likely suffer heavy injuries, let alone a level 1 fairy. Lady Sidhu clenched her fists. Although she believed in that great lord's judgment, she had never seen Su Yu fight before, so she couldn't help but worry about him. Now, it was time for her to observe him. As Xiao Hu's fist approached him, its intense energy caused Su Yu's white hair to flutter. However, his eyes, which were beneath the bamboo hat, were still calm and composed. Su Yu strode forward with his left foot and revolved his vital energy in his right fist, then thrust it forward lightly. One of them had a sturdy body, while the other was thin and old. Crack! However, when their fists collided, a cracking sound was heard from Xiao Hu's arms, while his sturdy body was pushed back. He almost fell off the pillar. Thump! Even though he managed to stop himself from falling back in the end, he still staggered and fell to the ground. He was in a complete mess and was in a sorry state. As for Su Yu, he just stood in his former place without moving an inch. Even though Xiao Hu's power had struck him, it didn't affect him in the slightest. Su Yu slowly retracted his left foot and pulled down his bamboo hat. He then said calmly, You really defeated me with just a single move. You defeated me with just a single move. Delight appeared on Lady Sidhu's face, as Su Yu was stronger than she had imagined. Xiao Hu's fist was at the level of a level 3 fairy, yet he had still been easily defeated. It was obvious that Su Yu's fighting prowess wasn't any lower than a level 3 fairy's. Fairy! Elderly heaved a sigh of relief, while a faint smile appeared on his handsome face. He then looked at Elder Tong, who had an unnatural expression on his face. The faint smile on Xiao Yueming's face disappeared, and he looked at Xiao Hu with obvious disappointment in his eyes. Didn't you use too much power when you attacked him? Xiao Yueming looked at Su Yu with his hands clasped behind his back, while his formless aura pressed down on Su Yu. However, Su Yu wasn't afraid of it, and he calmly took several steps forward to avoid the aura's pressure. He then said calmly, Xiao family's master, shouldn't you thank me for not killing him? If you don't lack eyesight, you should know that if I hadn't held back at the last moment, your so-called genius family's junior wouldn't have just had his arms broken. All of the almighty divine masters nodded at the same time. Even fairies couldn't discern it, so how could they not? At the last moment, Su Yu had held back half of his power, as he knew that he would surely lose his life. Xiao Yueming pretended that he didn't know anything about it, yet he still questioned him. Xiao Yueming was slightly angered by the crowd's gazes, but he still put on a gentle expression. Junior, your power isn't bad. Are you willing to continue exchanging pointers with me? Madame Sidhu wanted to obstruct him, but Su Yu spoke before her. You can. Xiao family's juniors, if you feel like you are a genius, you can challenge them one by one, as it's only in this way that you can understand your own power. Once you reach the test stage, you will know who you can provoke and who you can't. Such arrogant words really made everyone speechless. Isn't this guy too arrogant? Even if he didn't take the Xiao family's geniuses seriously, he should at least be afraid of Xiao Yueming. After all, Xiao Yueming isn't a magnanimous person, and if he was really infuriated, he would surely take revenge on him. TSK. He's really arrogant, but his temperament is to my liking. It seems like he's the helper that the Situ family invited. He didn't cower when he saw Madame Situ being bullied. Instead, he stood up for her. TSK. He's really arrogant. The Xiao family's juniors were infuriated, and they all looked at Su Yu angrily. No one had ever dared to look down on the Xiao family's genius juniors. Chapter 774. Su Yu cast a glance at her and shook his head. I'm not being arrogant, but I'm just reminding you not to cause trouble for me after entering the exam, so that you won't be able to come out alive if an accident happens to you. I'm actually trying to save your lives. His blatant threat infuriated the Xiao family's juniors. Then, let me see whether you are qualified to cause any accidents to happen to us. The woman looked at him coldly. Since the Xiao family had been humiliated in public, both she and her family had a duty to subdue them. They had two windless waves. The woman weaved signs with her hands. She was obviously using a magical technique. A formless cold wind started blowing around the woman's body. As she tapped the ground with the tip of her foot, her whole body started drifting erratically like a cloud of dust. Su Yu stood his ground and swept the surroundings with his gaze. All of a sudden, Su Yu pointed his finger at a spot 5 feet away from him. Slap! A soft sound echoed out, followed by a muffled sound. The woman, who was extremely fast, staggered and fell from her high-speed rotation. Blood was flowing out of the corners of her mouth, and her pretty face was ice-cold. It still isn't over. Wind-controlling finger. The woman didn't retreat, but charged forward instead. Wind started swirling around her fingertips, which then turned into sharp needles. A wind vortex appeared under her feet, and she instantly reached Su Yu. Her sharp fingertips were only 3 feet away from Su Yu. It was at this moment that Su Yu thrust his right fist forward. Flames appeared in his body and engulfed his palm. Crack! As a crisp sound echoed out, the woman's index finger was broken, and a powerful force spread from her finger to her arm, shattering all of her bones. As she screamed miserably, her beautiful face turned pale, and she retreated. However, this wasn't the end of it. The flames in Su Yu's palm followed her finger and quickly spread to her body, setting her dress ablaze. The woman hurriedly revolved her vital energy to extinguish the flames. However, the flames were extremely strange, and her vital energy could only obstruct them. Half of her body was still burning. Xiao Yueming's gaze became ice-cold, and he waved his hand. A divine master's power engulfed the woman, and the flames were extinguished. Many parts of the woman's body were burned red, and half of her dress had been burned off. A small white rabbit, which was hidden in front of her chest, trembled slightly. The woman shrieked in shame and indignation. She covered half of her body and squatted on the ground, wailing loudly. Su Yu retracted his fist, and the flames dissipated. He then said calmly, "It's obvious that I have the right to cause any accidents to happen to you. If any of you aren't convinced, then come and fight me." At this moment, everyone was astonished. Defeating a level 2 fairy with a single punch had already shocked them greatly. However, it was still a level 3 fairy's fist, which was no small matter. As the crowd looked at Su Yu, who was wearing the bamboo hat, they were all surprised. Where did Lady Situ find such an expert? Judging from his fighting prowess, he is probably one of the best level 3 fairies. The Situ clan is lucky. Such a young expert usually has his own recommendation and assessment channel. Why would he accept the mission of protecting the Situ clan? Everyone discussed animatedly. The Xiao family had lost twice in a row, and they had lost all face. No challengers? Su Yu swept his gaze over the Xiao family's 4 level 3 fairies, 1 level 4 fairy, and the callous level 5 fairy young lady. In the eyes of the Xiao family's experts, This kind of gaze was a complete provocation. "Let me do it," one of the level 3 fairies said. As soon as they clashed, he was sent flying with a single punch. "Me too." I still haven't finished speaking." The crowd witnessed the Shao family's level 3 fairies, who went forward to challenge him. All of them were sent flying by a single punch. Such overwhelming power allowed the crowd to witness Su Yu's great power. Lady Situ's pretty eyes flickered, and she was pleasantly surprised. Her lord had really found such a powerful genius for them. He was obviously just a level 1 fairy, yet he could easily defeat the Shao family's level 3 fairies. His fighting prowess was probably close to that of a level 4 fairy. The Shao family's juniors' gazes gradually changed. Their expressions changed from one of humiliation to one of shock, then to one of dread. Even now, no one dared to challenge him. The only level 3 fairy young lady, who hadn't challenged him yet, looked at Su Yu in fear. Su Yu looked at Xiao Yueming and said, "This is the Shao family's so-called genius. This is the Shao family's so-called genius. Xiao's family master, you really should worry more about your family's juniors, as it would be better for you to worry less about the Situ family's affairs." Su Yu looked at Xiao Yueming calmly. Xiao Yueming's expression became gloomy as he watched his juniors being sent flying one after another. The Shao family's master and the Branch family's young lady were the only 2 people who hadn't challenged him yet. "I will fight you." A 17-year-old youngster walked over with his hands clasped behind his back. He wore an ice-cold expression, as if he wasn't startled by his family's defeat. His eyes naturally revealed a strong sense of confidence. "Young Master Shao." Lady Situ's pupils contracted, while anticipation appeared in her eyes. This was an opportunity to test the Shao family's young master's cultivation, as well as Su Yu's bottom line. The other family's people also wore expectant looks on their faces. Xiao Yueming furrowed his brows and said, "Ling Jian, don't be impulsive. Now isn't the time for you to fight." He didn't want his child's cultivation to be seen through before the test, as it would be disadvantageous for him during the test. Xiao Lingjian clasped his hands behind his back and said, "I know what I'm doing. I will only use one move, and I will stop here, regardless of what happens to me." He understood what was at stake here, so he didn't plan to fight for long. So, he looked at Su Yu and said, I just need one move." Many families' people looked at him with solemn eyes. There were many rumors about Xiao Lingjian's power, but few people had seen him fight in person. It was rumored that he had once defeated a level 5 fairy, who had just advanced to the level 5 fairy realm not long ago. He had even managed to exchange 3 moves with a level 6 fairy realm expert without being defeated. His fighting prowess was still a mystery to them. Su Yu said indifferently, "Let's fight then." Xiao Lingjian clasped his hands behind his back and took a step forward. His robe fluttered even though there was no wind as he extended his right palm. A cracking sound echoed from his arm's bones, which echoed for a total of 49 times. The 100 Bones demonic tempering technique? Lady Situ's gaze became grave, while hatred appeared in her eyes. "In the past, my husband went on an adventure with Xiao Yueming, but he died mysteriously. Xiao Lingjian managed to bring back a high-grade legendary cultivation technique, the 100 Bones demonic tempering technique. It was rumored that this cultivation technique was passed down from ancient times, and even though it was just a fragment, it was still an extremely powerful demonic body tempering technique. After cultivating it successfully, the density of one's bones would increase sharply, which would greatly strengthen one's fleshly body. Since then, Xiao Yueming had managed to become a young master from an ordinary candidate, and he had managed to defeat many families' masters. This was all because of this 100 Bones demonic tempering technique. The Situ family's master's death was related to the 100 Bones demonic tempering technique, and it was also related to Xiao Yueming. "If you try to block my palm strike head-on, your arm's bones will surely shatter into 49 pieces." So you should prepare yourself for that, Xiao Lingjian said. He had cultivated 49 echoes, which meant that when he injured an enemy, it would be 90%. 4 of his bones would shatter. Shatter! Xiao Lingjian walked over and clasped one of his hands behind his back, while his other hand reached for Su Yu's head. A faint sound of air friction echoed around his arm. Su Yu detected danger, so he didn't take it lightly. His physical strength had already reached the level 4 fairy realm, even without using the first dragon's body, after going through the destruction and rebirth of the time and space reversal, as well as the tempering of the disastrous thunder and disastrous fire. It would be difficult for anyone below the level 4 fairy realm to block a single punch from Su Yu. However, Xiao Lingjian's 100 Bones demonic tempering technique was no small matter, and Su Yu was forced to deal with it cautiously. The blood energy channels in Su Yu's arms turned golden, and the strength in his arms increased tremendously. Bang! He punched out and clashed with his opponent's palm. Xiao Lingjian's cold expression changed slightly, and a hint of seriousness appeared in his calm eyes. Rub, he was forced to take 2 steps back. His left hand, which was behind his back, was unknowingly put down. He didn't have the calmness and confidence he had before he attacked. As for Su Yu, he was also forced to take 2 steps back. He was slightly surprised by this, as even though he had raised his fleshly body's power to the pinnacle and reached the level 5 fairy realm, he was still only able to fight Xiao Lingjian evenly. Of course, pure physical power was just Su Yu's most basic power. If he used the Buddhist saint's 8 characters, which he had cultivated to the top class of the first stage, then even a level 5 fairy realm young girl wouldn't be able to avoid him. Too late. This scene caused everyone's expression to change and turn serious. Even though Xiao Lingjian was very powerful, that mysterious bamboo hat genius was even more frightening. A level 1 fairy possessed a fleshly body comparable to a level 5 fairy's. This meant that the other party's physical body had reached an exceedingly strong realm. Xiao Yueming's expression became gloomy, and he finally looked at Su Yu squarely. Xiao Lingjian took a deep look at Su Yu, then moved back slowly. He didn't lose his reason and continue fighting. Why don't I give it a try? The level 5 fairy girl, Xiao Li, walked over coldly and stared at Su Yu. However, Xiao Yueming waved his hand. Come back. Xiao Lingjian's attack already seemed like he was bullying the weak, so if another level 5 fairy appeared, wouldn't they become a laughingstock? If Xiao Li were to win, the Xiao family would only end up with the reputation of being shameless and a sore loser. However, if they were to lose, they would become a laughingstock. It was very inappropriate for her to make a move. Kid, can you tell me who you are? Xiao Yueming did not believe that a person of the younger generation with such battle prowess would come to the Sidu clan and become a guard. He could not understand this at all. Similarly, everyone present couldn't figure it out. Since this child had displayed such heaven-defying abilities, he shouldn't be a nobody. At the very least, he would be taken in by many clans. Or, like the Situ clan, he would be included in the assessment. To protect their own people. Could it be that the Situ clan was so lucky to encounter one? At the Shangguan clan. Surprise appeared in Shangguan Yunk's eyes. Father, the bamboo hat man invited by the Situ clan is excessively powerful. I assumed that we were the only one who managed to invite a level 5 fairy genius to help our sisters-in-law. I didn't expect that the Situ clan would also have such a young expert. Upon hearing this, the Shangguan family's master nodded and looked at the bamboo hat man. He then said, "It's really surprising. Even if such a genius doesn't enter the Red Blood Palace, the Situ clan will surely recruit him and nurture him. Such a genius will surely have limitless achievements in the future." He then added, "Yunk, you should look for an opportunity to go over and interact with him. Let's see whether you can recruit him into our Shangguan family." The Shangguan family's master admired the bamboo hat man greatly. Chapter 775. The Shangguan family's master revealed a faint smile and said, We are just cherishing his talent. That youngster won't be able to display his talent in the Sidhu family, but our Shangguan family can provide him with a stage." Similar conversations had been heard by all the families on the stone pillars. Lady Sidhu's heart was as clear as a mirror, so she waved at him with a gentle smile and said, "Mr. Su, come here quickly." She had unknowingly changed the way she addressed him to Mr. Su. Since the Shao family had given up, Su Yu didn't want to continue challenging them. He said calmly, "The challenge has come to an end. I will say it for the last time. Don't provoke me. Otherwise, I can guarantee that you will all die in the exam." His blatant threat made the Shao family's juniors angry, but they didn't dare to say anything. They had just threatened to kill the Sidhu family's first daughter, Yen but now they were being threatened by Su Yu, who threatened to kill them in the exam grounds. After the previous fight, they didn't doubt Su Yu's ability at all. Once he was alone, no one could withstand more than 2 moves from him. Hearing Lady Sidhu's call, Su Yu flew back to the pillar. Lady Sidhu became even more enthusiastic, and she looked at Su Yu once again. His performance had really surprised her. She had assumed that the level 4 fairy realm was his limit, but in the end, even the Shao family's young master had managed to fight him to a draw. Lady Sidhu could see boundless potential in him. "Mr. Su, you must have worked hard. So, why do you need to stand up for the Shao family and offend them? With the Shao family's master's magnanimity, you won't be able to avoid trouble afterward." Lady Sidhu took out a white pill with her fair fingers. The pill's fragrance was intoxicating, and there were 3 patterns on its surface. It was a priceless 3rd-grade spirit pill. Su Yu was startled. Yen who was beside him, said with a smile, "Eat it. This is a vital energy recovery pill unique to the Sidhu family. My mother made it herself. She was still a primary alchemist." Su Yu took it and swallowed it on the spot. The vital energy in his body recovered quickly, and its effects were excellent. As he looked at the beautiful and dignified Lady Sidhu, Su Yu knew what she was thinking. She had told him that the Shao family would cause trouble for him because she hoped that he would join the Sidhu family and receive its protection. However, Su Yu's ambitions weren't in the Sky Castle, so he could only politely decline. "Senior, you don't need to worry. As long as the all-creation old monsters didn't hunt him down, even if Su Yu couldn't defeat them, he would still be able to escape." A trace of disappointment flowed through Lady Sidhu's beautiful eyes, and she blamed herself inwardly. She had misjudged him along the way, and she hadn't realized his potential. If they knew that he had such shocking potential, even if they couldn't rope in the Sidhu clan, they would still deliberately try to get closer to him. Since that's the case, you just have to be careful. If there's any trouble, you can look for Yen in the outer sanctum. Although the Sidhu family is in dire straits, we still have some power in the outer sanctum. Lady Sidhu settled for the next best thing. Su Yu nodded and went back to Yuan Yingying and Zixian's side. "Why do you have to be nosy?" Zixuan said curiously. "Master told me that the number 1 taboo when traveling in the world is to meddle in other people's business, and people like this usually die very quickly." Su Yu revealed a faint smile as he said, "I'm sure that your master didn't tell you that you should always take preventive measures. The Shao family has made it clear that they want to deal with us, so if we don't give them a show of strength and intimidate them, then we won't be able to deal with them. What awaits us is endless trouble," Su Yu said. At this moment, he looked at the Shao clan, but no one dared to look him in the eye. He believed that even if they were given more courage, they still wouldn't dare to cause trouble for him. Zixian didn't really understand him, so she said, "It seems like you know a lot." Su Yu chuckled. "If you have any questions, you can ask me." Zixian tilted her head and pondered it for a moment, then nodded. "Okay." Elderly was in a good mood, so he walked over to Su Yu and praised him. "Lad, not bad. I'm looking forward to your performance in the exam." Lady Sidhu was quite delighted, as Elderly was famous in the outer sanctum for his meticulousness. Since he was treating Su Yu in such a manner, It was obvious that he thought highly of him. This meant that there was a high chance that could pass the exam safely. On the Xiao family's master's stone pillar, Xiao Yueming looked at him coldly, then lowered his voice and transmitted a message to him. Elder Tong, how are your preparations? Elder Tong felt somewhat embarrassed, and as he looked at Elder Li, who was in a good mood, his expression became even more unsightly. He had instigated the Xiao family's members to challenge the Xiao family, but in the end, the Xiao family's members had been suppressed and beaten by the Bamboo Hat Man. Elder Tong looked at Su Yu with displeasure, then transmitted a message to him, as if nothing had happened. Xiao family's master, you can set your mind at ease. Besides your Xiao family's members, the other families shouldn't dream of passing the exam easily. The exam's first place doesn't belong to your Xiao family. Only then did the Xiao family's master's expression soften. They had just received news that the outer sanctum's first place would get a great reward, and even the inner sanctum's disciples were tempted by it. It was only because the Xiao family had a deep relationship with the inner sanctum that they had received such news. Dong! A bell's sound reverberated in the vast outer courtyard. A 30-meter-long eagle flew over their heads, and its whole body emitted a powerful aura that caused the blood of the fairies to surge. A divine master realm demonic bird! The crowd exclaimed in surprise. An old woman wearing a plain white robe was standing atop the eagle's head. She had a benevolent and amiable look, but the giant eagle beneath her feet was respectful and submissive. It was obvious how terrifying she was. Outer Palace's young palace master! Many families' masters exclaimed, while respectful looks appeared on their faces. The Red Blood Palace was divided into the Outer Palace and the Inner Palace. The Outer Palace was where the Outer Sanctum's disciples cultivated, and it was guarded by the Red Blood Palace's master, Mo Tianxian. Their cultivations had all reached the late stage of the Divine Master realm, and just by stamping their feet, they could intimidate the families and factions outside of the 18 great factions. Even the arrogant Xiao family wore a solemn expression, and they didn't dare to act rashly. The eagle descended in a spiral and rested on a giant boulder. The envoys on the 10 pillars flew over and stood behind her, all of them wearing respectful looks. It's the triennial recruitment test, and I hope that several outstanding disciples will appear this year, the young palace master said. Upon hearing this, the expressions of many families' masters became awkward. In the past 10 years, none of the outstanding disciples had appeared in the tests recommended by the outside world. On the contrary, there were many outstanding disciples recruited by the inside world. It was rumored that the Red Blood Palace planned to reduce the number of people recruited by the outside world and increase the number recruited by the inside world. This made many families restless. Although it was just a rumor, if the disciples recommended by the outside world didn't live up to expectations, then the rumor might come true. We won't disappoint Palace Master Kong Chan, Xiao Yueming said. Palace Master Kong Chan smiled and nodded. Let's start. The several envoys' elders started announcing the competition's rules. The first test is to kill demonic beasts in the fairy confining forest. It's a test of one's comprehensive fighting prowess. You must kill a demonic beast at a higher level than you, or 20 demonic beasts at the same level as you. The time limit is 3 days, and anyone who doesn't return to the stone pillar within the time limit will be considered a failure. He then added, you will also get points for this test. Killing a level 1 fairy demonic beast will count as 1 point, killing a level 2 fairy demonic beast will count as 20 points, killing a level 3 fairy demonic beast will count as 40 points, and killing a level 4 fairy demonic beast will count as 100 points. As for killing a level 5 fairy demonic beast, it will count as 500 points. This test's points will directly affect the test's overall ranking, so I hope that you will continue to work hard. The competition's taboo is that you mustn't kill each other. Anyone who violates this rule will be severely punished. The last taboo was just a piece of paper. Without any strong supervision, who would know that the participants would kill each other. The competition will start now. The family's juniors on the 9 stone pillars left one after another and entered the boundless fairy confining forest. Madame Situ was quite nervous, and she looked at Su Yu and said, "Mr. Su, I will entrust the Situ family to you." Su Yu nodded, his gaze falling on Yen. "I will protect her." He had only agreed to protect one person, not all of the Situ family's members. Su Yu, Yuan Yingying, Zixian, and Yen are all set off and flew into the forest. Madame Situ looked back at the juniors and gave them a meaningful look. She wanted them to follow them so that they would be safer. After they entered the forest, Su Yu surveyed his surroundings. "Brother Su, I have a map of the vicinity." Yen took out an old map from her pocket. It was left behind by an elder of the Situ family, who took part in the test. After many years of improvement, it has a rough description of the places with the most demonic beasts and their power. Su Yu took the map and started looking at it. Yen moved closer to Su Yu and pointed at the correct locations with her slender fingers. She then moved closer to Su Yu, and her sweet fragrance drifted into his nose. Unknowingly, her head was already near Su Yu's chest. Yuan Yingying's mouth twitched. Situ Yen had also started calling him Brother Su, and when she saw the two of them being so intimate, she also moved closer to him. "Su Yu, I will go and take a look in the vicinity. We will meet up in 3 days," Zixian said as she squinted her eyes. Su Yu knew that she was going to search for him among the people who took the test. "Take care of yourself," Su Yu said. Zixian rolled her eyes at him and said, "You should take care of yourself. Don't die." Yuan Yingying and Yen were quite confused as they watched her leave. Wasn't Zixian hired to protect Yen? Why did she leave just like that? Su Yu sighed. If she didn't leave, then he would surely be restrained. However, even if she left, he still had to be careful. After all, an all-creation old monster's senses couldn't be described with common sense. We are at the entrance, and the 100 Beasts Valley is in the southwest. There are many demonic beasts in the valley, both strong and weak. All of the people who took the test are hunting demonic beasts in the valley, Yen said obediently. Su Yu nodded. Yen's information is quite important, so let's go to the 100 Beasts Valley. The 100 Beasts Valley was half a day's journey away from them. The deeper they went into the forest, the more they could feel the demonic energy in the air. It was the aura of demonic beast. All of a sudden, a horned rabbit came out of the thicket in front of them. A level 1 fairy would surely be a great monster in the Zhenlong world, but in the fairy confining forest, it was the lowest grade of monsters. Yen's eyes lit up. "It's a demonic horned rabbit, and it just so happens that it's suitable for me." Yen took out a small bow and was just about to take aim at the demonic horned rabbit when an ice-cold arrow shot out from several miles away and penetrated the demonic horned rabbit. The withered grass in its path was destroyed in an instant, while the demonic horned rabbit was blasted to pieces. Swoosh! An ice-cold person stepped on fallen leaves and quickly flew over. Chapter 776. Even though Xiao Lingjian was only from a branch family, his talent for cultivation was even greater than that of the Xiao family's young master. Xiaoli cast a sidelong glance at Su Yu and the others, then put the demonic horned rabbit back into her spatial ring. Xiaoli stared at Siduyen and said with a faint smile, "Keep your eyes open when you walk. Bows and arrows don't have eyes. I won't be responsible if they hit you." Siduyen, who was hiding behind Su Yu, stuck out her small head and stuck out her tongue. Su Yu said calmly, "Have you forgotten my warning to the Xiao family? If you dare to cause trouble for me, you will surely regret it." His threat caused Xiao Li's expression to turn cold as she mysteriously said, "Surnamed Su, you won't be happy for long. I hope you'll be able to return alive." After saying that, she stepped on the air and her body flashed away. Siduyen was a little angry. "Brother Su, teach her a lesson the next time she shows up." Su Yu shook his head calmly. "Let's go." If she really dares to attack us, I don't mind making her regret it. After saying this, Su Yu and the others continued forward. All the low-level demonic beasts they encountered along the way were killed by the two girls. Not a single one was left alive. Su Yu, on the other hand, was completely uninterested. His goal was to hunt higher-level demonic beasts. In order to ensure that the assessment was foolproof, he needed to hunt as many powerful demonic beasts as possible. Roar! A soft roar reverberated in the air, causing the grass and trees to tremble. The impact of the sound wave caused Situyen and Yuan Yingying to cover their ears at the same time. It's a level 2 fairy realm demonic beast, a lion roaring beast. Situyen was delighted, as if she could kill a lion roaring beast, she would be qualified. However, according to the rules, the demonic beasts had to be killed by themselves for it to be counted. If they used Su Yu's hands, it would be considered cheating, and they would be eliminated immediately. As for how to determine whether he had borrowed someone else's help, the Red Blood Palace had countless means, and until now, there had never been a cheater who had managed to get away with it. Su Yu's role was to protect her, so that she would not be killed by demonic beasts in battle, or die from encountering other dangers. The three of them hurried over and arrived at the entrance of the 100-Beast Valley. 7 or 8 demon beasts were fighting with a group of humans. It's the Tang family, which is ranked 9th. Situyen pursed her lips. She was a little disappointed that someone had beaten her to it. Among the 7 or 8 demonic beasts, the lion-roaring beast was the only level 2 fairy, and a female member of the level 1 fairy realm was trying to kill the lion-roaring beast. However, the disparity between them was too great, and the female fairy realm fairy couldn't even pierce through the lion-roaring beast's fur. Instead, her eardrums were shattered by the lion-roaring beast's roar. Ah! Letting out a blood-curdling scream, the sword in his hand loosened, losing its ability to attack. However, in the midst of battle, how could the demonic beasts give her the chance to cushion the pain? He pounced forward, and his huge lion claws ruthlessly clawed at the woman's abdomen. The claws were as sharp as daggers. He cut the woman into pieces. 8th sister. The family's expert, who was watching over the battle, was at the level 3 fairy realm. When he saw that the situation was far from good, he took out his sword and slashed it at the lion-roaring beast's claw. Clang! When the sword landed on it, sparks flew, and only a layer of hair was shaved off. The lion-roaring beast let out a pained roar, and it became even more ferocious. It extended its claw forward and tore the female fairy into 2 pieces, starting from her abdomen. Ah! 8th sister! The youth's eyes widened as he angrily roared and started fighting with his sword. After a dozen exchanges, he finally found the lion-roaring beast's weak point. He then stabbed his sword into its eyes and killed it. Even though his cultivation was higher than the lion-roaring beast's, he couldn't kill it in a short time, and he could only watch helplessly as his 8th sister died. The 8th sister had wanted to kill it once and for all, so she volunteered to give it a try. However, she didn't expect that the youth, who was guarding her, wouldn't be able to save her from the demonic beast in time. What was even more pitiful was that he was only a level 3 fairy, so killing a level 2 fairy roaring beast was meaningless. The whole family's fighting spirit quickly disappeared, and as they looked at their 8th sister's tragic death, they all became depressed. Similar scenes were playing out in every corner of the fairy confining forest. If they were even slightly careless, they would die at the hands of the demonic beast. Su Yu and the others passed by them and entered the valley. The Sidhu family's juniors didn't stay too far away from them, and they followed them as they killed demonic beasts. The 100 Beasts Valley was extremely vast, and it had once been a giant meteorite crater. Because the meteorite contained all kinds of peerless starry skies, it was filled with lush spiritual herbs. As time passed, many demonic beasts were attracted to it, and it became known as the 100 Beasts Valley. The valley was divided into the outer section, the middle section, and the inner section. The outer section was usually occupied by level 2 to level 3 fairies, and most of the examinees hunted in the outer section. As for the middle section, it was occupied by level 4 fairies. Only the inner section was extremely dangerous, as it was occupied by level 5 fairy demonic beasts. It was even rumored that level 6 fairy demonic beasts had once appeared there. No one had ever dared to enter the inner section, as those who did would usually die. After he understood all of this, Su Yu got lost in his thoughts. If he was alone, he would be able to easily enter the inner section, but he had Yuan Yingying and Situyen with him, so he had to be careful. He had witnessed the Tang family's tragedy. Demonic beasts' bodies were much more powerful than humans, and if he was careless, he would regret it for the rest of his life. As he pondered this, he stepped into the outer section, and he could already faintly see some traces of the family's activities. The roars of demonic beasts could be heard everywhere, as well as the roars of humans. "Brother Su, let's hunt here." Situyen was eager to give it a try. Su Yu nodded. The demonic beasts in this area were perfect for them, as if they continued forward, they would encounter powerful demonic beasts that would be difficult for them to kill. "Ah! 3 horned wolves are rushing over." Situyen cried out involuntarily. From afar, they could see 3 horned wolves fleeing from the outer section, and they seemed quite flustered. When they saw Su Yu and the other 2 standing in the middle of the road, they pounced at them. The horned wolves were level 2 fairy demonic beasts, and if they managed to kill them, they would have passed the test. "Let me deal with the one in the middle." Situyen's small eyes were filled with excitement. She took a deep breath, then took out a white formation flag from her pocket and stuck it into the ground. Su Yu raised his brows slightly. A formation flag? He wasn't unfamiliar with such an object. The white vital energy emitted a white halo, then shot out a bolt of lightning, which bombarded the horned wolf's body. The horned wolf's whole body went numb, but its ferocious gaze didn't decrease. Instead, it became more ferocious as it pounced at Situyen. Fear appeared on Situyen's face, but she clenched her teeth and forced herself to stay calm. She then took out a red formation flag from her pocket and stuck it into the ground in front of her. The red formation flag flickered and shot out a flame, which struck the horned wolf's body. The intense burning pain caused the horned wolf to howl miserably. However, its ferocious gaze became even more intense, and it dashed forward. Situyen took out 2 formation flags, one green and one silver, and stuck them into the ground in front of her. They formed a line with the previous white and red formation flags. The 4 formation flags, which had different colors and were as big as a palm, all shot out attacks of different colors. The white one was a thunderbolt, the silver one was a lightning bolt, the red one was a raging flame, and the green one was a hurricane. Wind, fire, thunder, and lightning were the 4 natural energies of the world. These 4 energies were relatively weak, and while they might be effective against a level 1 fairy, they weren't enough to deal with a horned wolf. However, the 4 formation flags shot out continuously. The burning pain, numbness, and resistance caused the horned wolf to howl, then turn around and run away. Situyen's face lit up. She took out a yellow formation flag from her pocket and stuck it into the ground. Rumble! The horned wolf's surroundings were suddenly filled with earth pillars, which were several dozen feet long. They formed a cage and trapped the horned wolf within it. The horned wolf's attacks were ineffective, and it continued howling in the cage. Meanwhile, the 4 formation flags, which were made of wind, fire, thunder, and lightning, continued to attack it. In the end, the horned wolf was tortured to death. "Ha ha ha, my 4 divisions formation has been successfully completed." Situyen placed her hands on her hips and laughed heartily. Yuan Yingying's expression changed. Jealousy, resentment, and jealousy appeared on her face. "So, you are a formation master. It's no wonder that they paid such a high price to send you to the Red Blood Palace." "A formation master?" Su Yu was curious about Situyen's potential. Situyen stuck out her chest and raised her snow-white neck. "That's right. The 4 divisions formation's success means that I've become a primary formation master, and the Red Blood Palace will surely nurture me well. Yuan Yingying pouted and glared fiercely at the horned wolf, which was charging at her. The ferocious horned wolf didn't even let out a miserable shriek, as its eyes quickly dimmed and it fell to the ground. Situyen, who was still feeling complacent, was startled. What technique did you use? You are just a half-fairy, yet you managed to easily kill a level 2 fairy? She found this to be inconceivable. Yuan Yingying stuck out her ample breasts proudly and crossed her arms in front of her chest. She then said proudly, "Brother Su taught me this technique. I can kill even a level 3 fairy, let alone a level 2 fairy." Is she so amazing? Situyen widened her eyes, and when her gaze fell on Su Yu, her eyes became filled with adoration. She then hugged Su Yu's arm and shook it. "Brother Su, I also want to learn it." Yuan Yingying immediately regretted her decision, especially when she saw Situyen hugging Su Yu's arm and fawning over him. She was so infuriated that her chest started shivering. "You shameless *****. Let go of my brother Su. Why should I teach him to you?" Situyen glared at her and said, "I'm begging you, not you." Yuan Yingying was infuriated, and she hugged Su Yu's other arm as she glared at Situyen. Black lines appeared on Su Yu's forehead as he thought. Even if these 2 girls want to quarrel with each other, they should still look at the situation first. Su Yu's expression suddenly changed, and his expression became grave as he looked at the depths of the valley. It seemed like they noticed the change in Su Yu's expression, so they stopped quarreling. When they finally calmed down, they noticed that the ground beneath their feet was trembling slightly. The gravel on the ground started rising like waves. A great wave of pressure came from the depths of the valley. Fear appeared in the eyes of the remaining horned wolf, and it started rushing out crazily. At the same time, the insects in the depths of the ground all came out of the ground and started running out of the valley. What happened inside? Yuan Yingying and Situyen both grabbed Su Yu's hands. They were both nervous and restless. Su Yu's gaze became grave, and as he retreated, he shook his head and said, "I don't know, but we must leave the valley." Swoosh! Swoosh! As they were retreating crazily, a large number of people flew out of the depths of the valley. Chapter 777. There were at least several hundred of them. It was a majestic sight to behold. Finally, Su Yu discovered a group of demonic beasts on the horizon of the valley. Some of them were birds, while others were beasts on the ground. They were like a flood that covered the horizon. There were at least 10,000 of them. Beast-tide. Situyen's body shivered as she stammered. Yuan Yingying's beautiful eyes also shrunk to the size of a needle. Her small hands were trembling, revealing the fear in her heart. The beast-tide wasn't unfamiliar to them, as it was described in books as a calamity. In JoJo's history, there were countless records of great cities and factions being destroyed in a single night because of the beast-tide. The fairy confining forest was the origin of the beast-tide. Almost 90% of the beast-tide came from the fairy confining forest. The beast-tide was terrifying because no matter how strong an expert was, he wouldn't be a match for an army of countless beasts. Once he was engulfed by the beast-tide, he wouldn't even have a corpse left behind. There was only one way to save him from the beast-tide. Escape. Escape at all costs. Su Yu's expression became grave. Even a divine master would flee when facing such a great beast-tide. Let's leave quickly. Su Yu grabbed one of them by the waist, then turned around and fled. In the twinkling of an eye, he had already traversed several thousand miles. However, when he looked behind him, he saw that the beast-tide wasn't getting further away. Instead, it was getting closer. Miserable screams echoed from behind him. Those who were flying in the sky were being chased by swift birds, which tore them apart and devoured them one by one. As for those who were running on the ground, they weren't able to escape from the powerful beast. After all, those who were at the forefront of the beast-tide were all beasts with great speed and movement technique. I will risk my life against you. A level 3 fairy realm genius, upon realizing that he couldn't escape, decided to turn around and face them head-on. He took out a sword with each of his hands and imbued it with his vital energy. The demonic beasts that were charging at him were all cut down, leaving behind a bloody path. However, the demonic beasts beside him were still charging forward crazily. After a short while, his body was engulfed by the beast tide. Following that, a blood-curdling scream came to an abrupt end. People's screams echoed one after another, as they were all killed by the beast tide. Just a moment ago there were more than 100 people, but now there were only 40 left. Moreover, they were being devoured by the beast tide at an extremely fast speed. As for Suyu, he was gradually left behind. It was already extremely difficult for him to travel alone, let alone with 2 other people. Brother Su, put me down. I'll escape by myself. Yuan Yingying bit her lip. Take Situ Yan with you. That way you'll still have a chance. Situ Yan's pretty face turned pale. She clenched her teeth and said, Brother Su, put me down. The beast tide was unexpected. My mother won't blame you if I die in the beast tide. At such a critical moment, they all knew that they had implicated Su Yu. Su Yu's expression became gloomy, and he was just about to wait and see. After all, the Red Blood Palace's people must have detected the appearance of a terrifying beast tide, and those divine master experts wouldn't just sit by and watch as their clansmen were annihilated. Soon, he would make his move and defeat the beast tide. Right at this moment, a sharp cry suddenly tore through the sky. The human geniuses who were fleeing for their lives shuddered violently as the true chi within their bodies froze. Those who were running on the ground stumbled and fell to the ground. Then, they were drowned by the beast tide army and trampled to death. Those who were flying in the sky were even more unlucky. Having lost their Jinchi, they plummeted from the sky and were either devoured by the flying beasts or smashed into meat paste on the spot. In the blink of an eye, most of the geniuses had died a violent death. A small number of geniuses had survived, but their true energy had been frozen, so they couldn't run fast at all. One by one, they died. Su Yu's vital energy was also frozen, and he couldn't even use his magical treasures. Fortunately, Su Yu was still flying at a low altitude, so he carried the 2 young girls and rolled on the ground. Then, he continued to flee unscathed. However, without the support of their true chi, they were like ants, unable to run fast. A great crisis suddenly descended. Su Yu's heart sank as he examined his internal energy channel. It was not that his Jinchi had solidified, but that his Dantian had solidified, causing his Jinchi to be unable to circulate. In Su Yu's external Dantian, the lake, which was the size of an acre, was also frozen. However, what made him overjoyed was that his inner Dantian was still intact. Without hesitation, Su Yu activated his inner Dantian and activated the vital energy in his body. Then, he took out a pair of white wings with a flip of his palm and dripped a drop of blood on them. The wings became indistinct, turning into a phantom and fusing into Su Yu's body. Shortly after, the muscles on Su Yu's back wriggled, and a pair of snow-white wings grew out of thin air. As the wings flapped, a strong wind blew, and the beast tide behind them was blown back a little. Just after that, Su Yu and the 2 of them disappeared without a trace, as if they had teleported. An angry roar echoed from the depths of the beast tide. The departure of Su Yu and the 2 of them had infuriated the demonic beast, which had frozen all of its genius vital energy. A blood-red remnant shadow dashed out of the beast tide and chased after Su Yu. The beast tide behind them became even more frenzied, and they all rushed out of the valley. 1,000,000 miles away, 3 people appeared out of thin air. They were Situ Yan and Su Yu, who were still in a state of shock. Situ Yan stared at the giant wings on Su Yu's back, and her eyes flickered with excitement. The blue water 9 heaven wings. Brother Su, you still have such a priceless treasure. Her big eyes were filled with curiosity, and she extended her hand to touch it. My mother wanted to find one for me, but it was too rare, and it was not sold in the market. Apart from the Situ family, only the Shangguan family has one. I didn't expect that you would also have one. Yuan Yingying snorted and said, "What's so special about it? You can't even imagine how amazing Brother Su is." Situ Yen glared at her and said, "Big-breasted woman, why are you speaking as if Brother Su is someone important to you? Who are you calling a big-breasted woman? You flat-chested woman." Yuan Yingying glared at her and bared her fangs. Situ Yen was immediately irritated. "How dare you call me flat-chested? I will bite you to death, you big-breasted woman. Come on. Come on. I will poke you to death." Yuan Yingying wasn't willing to show weakness. The two girls, one on Su Yu's left and the other on his right, started wrestling with each other. Su Yu couldn't help but ask, "Sirs, can you get off my body before you start quarreling?" They were still in Su Yu's embrace. Their faces became flushed, and they both stopped fighting. Su Yu looked back at the valley and said, "The beast tide won't come out of nowhere. There must be a reason behind it. Let's retreat for now and wait for the beast tide to disperse before we come back to hunt demonic beasts." Just as Su Yu expected, after half a day, the young palace mistress Kong Chan led the outer palace's emissaries to the 100 Beasts Valley. Under the deterrence of a dozen divine masters, the beast tide, which had come out in full force, was forced back into the depths of the valley. In the inner part of the valley, Palace Mistress Kong Chan and the emissaries were in a cave, which had a powerful demonic energy lingering in it. There was a large number of soft and comfortable beast skins in the depths of the cave. There was a broken egg at the center of the beast skins, which emitted a fishy smell. "Palace Mistress, this is the egg of the level 6 Fairy Realm Beast King, the devilish Eye Scarlet Marten. It laid an egg," Elderly said as he waved his sleeves, which gave rise to a gentle breeze and flipped the egg over. The other side of the egg cracked open, and the yolk flowed out. "The egg is broken." Elder Lee's expression became gloomy. "Every time the devilish Eye Scarlet Marten lays an egg, there are always 2 eggs. One of them is broken, while the other one is missing. It seems like someone intruded into the cave and stole the egg. Then, he purposely broke one of the eggs to infuriate the devilish Eye Scarlet Marten, which then drove a large number of demonic beasts to attack the challengers outside. This beast tide wasn't a natural disaster, but a man-made disaster. None of the family's disciples who entered the 100 Beasts Valley were spared. Some families are willing to resort to any means possible to get the first place in the exam, and they even came up with such a vicious scheme," Elderly said in a deep voice. It was obvious that this was a scheme of a sinister family, which had killed almost half of the challengers. The number of casualties in this exam would probably set a new record. Palace Mistress Kong Chan was silent for a moment. "Let's go. Since the other party planned this, they surely wouldn't leave any traces behind. We just need to keep an eye on the devilish Eye Scarlet Marten's egg, and we'll be able to find the mastermind behind this. That beast egg is quite valuable, and I believe that the mastermind behind this won't keep it for long." Since they dared to tamper with the Red Blood Palace's exam, they must have realized that there was no reason for them to let it go. Elderly hesitated for a moment before asking, "What if we find out that it was done by a certain family?" Palace Mistress Kong Chan replied without hesitation, "We will obviously exterminate a whole family, as it won't be difficult for us to support a new family." It was really difficult to believe that such cruel words as exterminating a whole family would come from the amiable-looking Palace Mistress Kong Chan. After the beast tide, the number of challengers had decreased greatly, and a large number of demonic beasts had also scattered in the forest. Su Yu took the 2 women with him as he ran through the forest, looking for a suitable demonic beast to kill. One of them had relied on her soul power, while the other had relied on the formation's power to kill demonic beasts, which were at a higher level than them. They had already reached the qualification requirements, and now, they were just trying to accumulate points so that they could get a good ranking. At noon the next day, Su Yu and the others were chasing after a snow fox, which had a strange speed. It was a level 4 fairy. According to the rules, they would get 100 points for killing it, which was exactly what Su Yu wanted. When Su Yu saw that the snow fox was about to run into the bushes, he waved his hand. 4 spheres of similar size appeared above the snow fox's head, then shot out 4 light beams that trapped the snow fox within them. The snow fox bared its teeth ferociously, then used its claw to tear apart the light barrier. When it was about to escape, Su Yu descended from the sky and thrust his right fist at it. Su Yu's fist, which was powered by his full power, was as powerful as a level 5 fairy's strike. The snow fox's head was crushed on the spot, and it died in an instant. Su Yu curled his finger and threw its corpse into his spatial ring. Situ Yen and Yuan Yingying were dumbfounded, and their eyes widened in shock. A level 4 fairy snow fox had been killed in such a short time. His power was at least at the level 5 fairy level. Wow! Brother Su, you are so amazing! Situ Yan's eyes were filled with admiration. She had seen many talented experts in the Situ family, but it was the first time she had seen someone as monstrous as Su Yu. She couldn't help but revere him. Su Yu smiled and was just about to reply modestly when his ears suddenly twitched. There is a commotion ahead of us. Let's go over and take a look. After the time it would take to brew half a cup of tea, they arrived at the foot of a mountain. All of the Shangguan family's geniuses were gathered here. They hadn't rushed to the 100 Beasts Valley immediately, so they had managed to avoid the beast tide. However, they were in a precarious situation. They were now surrounded by a group of flame leopards. Flame leopards were level 3 fairy demonic beasts, and they liked to live in group. 9 flame leopards had forced the 18 of them into a cave, which prevented them from flying away, so they could only defend themselves. Shangguan Fei and Zhang Fan were at the front, and they were trying their best to defeat the flame leopards, which were trying to charge into the cave. Zhang Fan was still fine, as his cultivation was at the level 4 fairy realm, so he could manage to deal with them. However, Shangguan Fei was in a difficult situation, as there were many burns on his body, and he had consumed a lot of vital energy. Brother Zhang, how much longer can you last? Shangguan Fei's expression became gloomy. Zhang Fan's expression became gloomy as he shouted, "How would I know? Your Shangguan family thinks that they are clever, and you drove away all the powerful people, leaving behind a group of incompetent disciples who can't fight well in the face of danger. Their fighting prowess has become a burden. Otherwise, we wouldn't be in such a passive situation." In the past, Zhang Fan wouldn't have dared to treat Shangguan Fei in such a manner. However, now that they couldn't escape this calamity, he vented all of his resentment. Shangguan Fei was quite bitter, and he said angrily, "It's all the Shao family's fault. If they hadn't launched a sneak attack and killed the level 5 fairy realm genius who was protecting us, a trifling group of flame leopards wouldn't have dared to hunt us down." The Shangguan family had also managed to invite a level 5 fairy realm genius. He was from the Soul Seizing Palace, and he was ranked 3rd among the Outer Sanctum's disciples. So, even if he didn't go through the external test, he could still enter the Red Blood Palace through the internal test. They had paid a great price to invite this famous Outer Sanctum's disciple, and they had assumed that they would be safe. But, who would have expected that the Shao family would launch a sneak attack and kill him with an arrow? After losing their protection, they ended up being surrounded by a group of demonic beasts. What I regret the most is that I didn't leave with Su Yuxian. Zhang Fan was filled with regret. My power is greater than his, and I obviously have a brighter future than him. Dying in the immortal confining forest, fate really makes fools of people. Zhang Fan had always had a good impression of himself, and even now, he still looked down on Su Yu. All of a sudden, the 9 flame leopards outside stopped their attacks and retreated, while flames started brewing in their mouths. Zhang Fan's expression changed drastically. "Awful. They are planning to burn us alive in the cave." They could still use their vital energy to block the flames for a short time, but if they continued for a long time, they wouldn't be able to endure it. Will I, Shangguan Fei, really die here? Shangguan Fei's face was filled with grief. He recalled how he had been in high spirits before he had left, and how he had vowed to enter the Red Blood Palace. But now, he had been reduced to being roasted alive by a group of beasts. Bang! Bang! At this moment, a commotion broke out outside the cave. 3 flame leopards were bombarded by a group of afterimages, and they were instantly destroyed. At the same time, a man wearing a bamboo hat appeared. He was holding 2 flame leopards in his left and right hands, and as he clenched his fist, the flame leopards' necks were snapped. In the blink of an eye, 5 flame leopards had been killed. Such a ruthless method shocked Zhang Fan and the others, causing their expressions to change drastically. Half of the flame leopards, which had almost killed them, had been killed in the blink of an eye. When the rest of the flame leopards saw that the situation was far from good, they fled in fear. Humph! The man in the bamboo hat snorted coldly. He didn't make any moves, but he looked at the 4 fleeing flame leopards. Plop! Zhang Fan and the others were horrified to see that the fleeing flame leopards suddenly went limp, and they fell to the ground with a miserable howl before they died. Brother Su here. One of them had a cute face and an unusually mature body, while the other had a clever face and a slender body. They each held 2 flame leopards, and they passed them to Su Yu in a fawning manner. Su Yu opened the ring and collected all the flame leopards on the ground. One level 3 fairy realm beast was worth 40 points, so 9 of them would be worth 360 points. Situyen? Shangguan Fei's pupils contracted. So, this man in the bamboo hat is the freak who defeated the Shao family? Reverence appeared in Zhang Fan's eyes as he walked out of the cave and bowed to Su Yu. Brother, thank you for saving our lives. Shangguan Fei also quickly walked out of the cave. He was respectful and reverent. Su Yu took a look at them, then looked at the Shangguan family's disciples, who were walking out of the cave one after another. He then said expressionlessly, I only saved you because of Shangguan Yunk. That's all. Big brother? Shangguan Fei was startled, but he soon felt relieved. My big brother has many friends, and this freak, who doesn't show his face, must be an outer sanctum disciple of one of the 18 factions. Let's go. Su Yu turned around and left. Shangguan Fei asked, Wait, may I ask your name? Su Yu curled up the corners of his mouth. He's just a person who was driven away by the Shangguan family. You don't want to know. Su Yu waved his hand without turning his head. However, Shangguan Fei hurriedly said, Brother, we ran into the Sidu family's people a moment ago, and they requested us to meet them as soon as possible. Their situation isn't good. Sidu Yan's expression became tense. What's bad? Explain it clearly. Shangguan Fei replied solemnly, They are being chased by the Shao family. We want to help them, but we can't even protect ourselves. What? The Shao family attacked them? Situ Yan clenched her fists tightly. She was quite anxious as she asked, Where are they? When did this happen? Shangguan Fei replied, It's already been 2 hours. If we're lucky, the Shao family probably hasn't caught up to us yet. The Shao family has announced that you were killed in the beast tide, and the Sidu family's people have lost their will to fight. So, it's best for you to meet them as soon as possible. Otherwise, the situation won't be good for you. Su Yu furrowed his brows slightly. The Shao family's people didn't go to the 100 Beasts Valley, so how could they know that they were killed there? There must be something fishy about this. Could it be that the beast tide was caused by the Shao family? The scene of him entering the forest and running into Shaoli appeared in his mind. She had even told him that he wouldn't be able to leave alive. Now, it seemed like the Shao family was the most suspicious one. An ice-cold glint flickered in the depths of his eyes. The beast tide that they had caused had almost killed Su Yu. The blue water 9 heavens wings, which were worth 100,000 crystals, had been wasted because of it. He had already warned the Xiao family time and time again not to provoke them. It seemed like the warning on the stone pillar wasn't enough, so he could only use blood to pay them back. Yener Yingying, let's go. Su Yu's expression was calm, while he spoke in a deep voice. Situ Yen spoke anxiously, Brother Su, you must save them. I'm begging you. Yingying also sympathized with her. Although she had always bickered with Situ Yen, she didn't dislike this young miss, who didn't put on airs. She then said, Brother Su, please help her. Su Yu held their waists with one hand, while a cold smile appeared at the corners of his mouth. Is saving them enough? Since the Xiao family's people think that their fists are the greatest and that they can rule over everything, then I will teach them what despair is. Yuan Yingying's gaze flickered. Brother Su, what do you want? Chapter 778. Southwest. The 18 boys and girls of the Situ clan fled towards the immortal confining forest with great difficulty. All of them were in low spirits and had sorrowful expressions as they ran through the muddy mountain forest. Compared to the family's disciples who had entered the 100 Beasts Valley, they could be considered lucky. They had followed Su Yu and the others, and when they reached the 100 Beasts Valley's entrance, they discovered that a beast tide was occurring there. It was because of this that they managed to escape in time, but Situ Yen, Su Yu, and the others never came out again. Needless to say, they were probably killed in the beast tide. However, what put them in a dangerous situation was that they were discovered by the powerhouses of the Xiao family. With Xiao Lingjian as the leader, the group of Xiao family's experts immediately chased after them. If Su Yu was still alive, they would be afraid of his existence and would more or less restrain themselves. However, since Su Yu had perished in the beast tide, they had no more misgivings. One of the female tribesmen didn't manage to escape in time and was killed on the spot. There was also a male clansman who was swept away by a venomous wind snake that had escaped from the beast tide and became the dried fruit food of the beast. There were pursuers behind them, and there was a scattered beast tide midway. In front of them was the endless immortal confining forest. Their hearts sank. You guys go first. All of a sudden, the level 3 Fairy Situ clan's leader stopped in his tracks. He had a big bow on his waist, and his expression was grave and stern. Big Brother Jiu, we will be able to escape the fairy confining forest in another 2 hours. Then, we will be discovered by the Red Blood Palace, and they won't dare to attack us, one of the clansmen said in alarm. He already knew what this clansman wanted to do. Situ Jiu shook his head slightly and said, We don't have enough time. The Xiao family's overall strength is far greater than ours. If we continue to run like this, no one will be able to save us. I'll stay here and attract their attention. You guys try to buy some time to escape. The clansmen's hearts were filled with sorrow. Were they, the juniors of the Situ clan, really going to fall to the fate of being slaughtered? If the beast tide hadn't suddenly arrived and caused Su Yuxian's death, the Xiao family wouldn't have dared to mess around. Big Brother Jiu, take care. The clansmen bowed respectfully. Using the darkness of the forest, they quickly left. Situ Jiu took a deep breath and leaped onto an ancient tree. His eyes were bright and full of expression as he looked around. There was a sharp black arrow at the tip of his finger, and he quietly knocked it on the bowstring. He was ready to shoot the moment he discovered anyone from the Xiao clan. It's worth it to kill a member of the Xiao clan before I die, Situ Jiu thought to himself. Suddenly, a black shadow flashed in the forest below him. Situ Jiu's eyes turned cold. He pulled the bowstring and lowered his head to look around. However, at this moment, a strong gust of wind came from above. Not good, I've been tricked. Situ Jiu's expression changed. His opponent had long since discovered him. The figure below him had only attracted his attention. The true attacker was above him. Situ Jiu subconsciously raised his palm to attack, only to hear a cold snort. You overestimate yourself. Bang! In an instant, a tsunami-like force slammed down, and his arm broke with a crack. His opponent's powerful palm force was like a hot knife through butter as it struck his shoulder armor. Crack, starting from his shoulder blade, half of his skeleton shattered layer by layer. His flesh also exploded like magma. In the intense pain, Situjo lost his balance and fell from the ancient tree. His eyes reflected the top of the tree that was getting further and further away, as well as the cold face standing there with his hands clasped behind his back. Xiao Lingjian, the young master of the Xiao family. His heart was filled with unwillingness, resentment, and grief. Situjo fell heavily to the ground. The powerful impact had almost shattered his broken body. His mind was in intense pain, and he fainted on the spot. Swoosh! Swoosh! In the darkness, the Xiao family's juniors chased after him and surrounded the tree respectfully. Humph! You deserve to die, yet you still tried to plot against us. It's fortunate that Brother Lingjian noticed it first. A level 3 fairy realm young girl kicked the unconscious Situyen. If Suyu had been here, he would have recognized her as the young girl who had just burned her clothes with a single punch. Swoosh! Xiao Lingjian clasped his hands behind his back and calmly glanced at Situjo. His gaze locked in the direction in which the Xiao family had escaped. He then said apathetically, "Don't blame us for killing you. If you want to blame someone, blame yourself for not knowing how to appreciate our kindness. Originally, we could have forgiven you just by killing Situyen, but it was because of your struggle that we had no choice but to kill you as well." In their minds, it was because they didn't want to let Situyen die without putting up a fight. Instead, they allowed Su Yuxian to embarrass the Xiao family. The young girl, whose clothes had been burned, clenched her teeth. She was filled with hatred as she said, "Brother Lingjian, let's quickly chase after them and kill them all. Our Xiao family has never suffered such humiliation, and the Situ family must pay for it with their blood." Shame appeared in the eyes of the Xiao family's juniors, and they all felt somewhat restless. Xiao Hu, who had been crippled by Su Yu's punch, asked hesitantly, "Shouldn't we first check whether the bamboo hat man is still alive? If he's dead, then it'll be fine. But if he's still alive, and he learns that we're chasing after the Situ family's genius, then he will probably put us in danger." His words resonated with many people. Since they didn't see Su Yu's corpse, there was a lingering shadow in their hearts. Slap! As a blue light flickered, the young girl, whose clothes had been burned, flickered over and slapped his face. Her pretty face became hideous as she said, "Don't praise him and belittle us. Let alone the fact that he died in the beast tide. Even if he didn't die, so what? There are so many of us here, so why should we be afraid of him? If he's still alive, then I will personally kill him." The young girl clenched her teeth and spoke in a stern voice. However, at this moment, an apathetic voice suddenly transmitted from above their heads. "You want to kill me?" The voice suddenly transmitted to them, and it seemed like it came from all directions, causing them to lose track of where it came from. However, the Xiao family's expressions stiffened when they heard the familiar voice. That voice. It's definitely the bamboo-hatted man. He didn't die. Xiao Lingjian's eyes flickered as he looked at the forest behind him. His pupils flickered as he asked, "You didn't die?" A man wearing a black bamboo hat walked out from the depths of the darkness like a ghost. Behind him were two beautiful girls, one on the left and one on the right. The slender young girl on his right side was none other than Situyen. Suyu looked at him and revealed a faint smile. His smile seemed quite evil as he asked, "Are you disappointed that I didn't die? Or, can I ask you how you know that we died in the 100 Beasts Valley? I don't remember running into any of your Xiao family's people before I entered the valley." His question caused the expressions of the Xiao family's people to change slightly. After all, they were clearly aware of why the beast tide had appeared. This was why none of the Xiao family's people had died in the 100 Beasts Valley. Xiao Lingjian looked at Su Yu coldly and said, "I'm not disappointed. I just wanted to kill you once again. As for why I knew that you entered the 100 Beasts Valley, I have nothing to say." As Su Yu observed everyone's expressions, he curled up the corners of his mouth and said, "Sure enough, the beast tide was caused by you." A chilly aura, which was mixed with killing intent, emanated from Su Yu's body. All of the Shao family's people felt as if they were facing a great enemy, and their hearts shivered as they looked at Su Yu. In their eyes, Su Yu's fighting prowess could be considered monstrous. The young girl, who was standing behind Shao Lingjian, shivered as she glared at Su Yu. It was as if she was looking at her mortal enemy. She pointed the sword in her hand at him and gnashed her teeth as she asked, "You shouldn't have forgotten who I am, right?" Su Yu cast a glance at her and replied, "Yes, I do. My clothes were burned." His words infuriated her. "Then, do you know what I will do to you?" Su Yu shrugged his shoulders indifferently, then squinted his eyes and swept them over the Shao family's people. He then said, "You should all remember my warning to you. Don't cause trouble for me, or else an unexpected accident will happen to you in the fairy confining forest." He then added, "I assumed that you would listen to me, but it seems like you are too confident and won't listen to me. Since this is the case, I can only use my own method to warn you," Su Yu said calmly. The young girl was so angry that she laughed. "Why don't you take a look at your current situation first? Do you think that we will fight you one-on-one like we did in a spar?" Su Yu shook his head. "I obviously won't, but if you think that having more people is your only advantage, then you can say goodbye to me." "You! Huh!" The young girl laughed angrily, but her laughter came to an abrupt end. Her body was limp on the ground, and her eyes were dull and lifeless. Her face still had the same expression as when she was alive. A level 3 fairy had just died inexplicably. The Shao family's people felt as if they had fallen into an ice cellar, and their whole bodies shivered. Shao Lingjian's pupils contracted as he looked at Su Yu and said, "Soul attacks. You are a soul prodigy." Su Yu didn't reply to him, but continued using soul attack. When Yuan Yingying saw this, she immediately joined them and started using soul attacks together with Su Yu. The level 3 fairies had priority in killing them. Another level 3 fairy fell. "Don't kill me. I was wrong. I will withdraw from the test. Please let me off." In just a split second, the remaining 4 level 3 fairies were killed on the spot. The rest of the Shao family's juniors shivered in fright. A terrified scream rang out. The Shao clan's juniors were truly scared out of their wits, and they fled in all directions in terror. The group of people split up and fled in different directions. "Don't split up." Shock appeared on Shao Lingjian's face as he shouted anxiously. The forest was now filled with the beast tide, and it was only because they had a large number of people that the hidden demonic beasts didn't dare to attack them. When his words echoed out, a female fairy, who was running away alone, was bitten by a hideous-looking earthworm that came out of the ground and dragged into the depths of the ground. Such a scene quickly played out, but the more it played out, the more frightened they became, and the more they started fleeing. Shao Lingjian's gaze became ice-cold as he looked at Su Yu with killing intent. "Su Yuxian, you are about to die." Su Yu shrugged his shoulders and said to the 2 women, "Yingying, Yen take Situ Jio with you and chase after the Situ family's people. Then, quickly return to the stone pillar. There are still many powerful demonic beasts in the forest." They had already killed their targets, which meant that they had passed the first round of the test, so they didn't need to continue risking their lives in the forest. "Brother Su, you should be careful. I will wait for you at the stone pillar." Situ Yen bit her red lips, while worry appeared in her eyes. In the twinkling of an eye, the 2 of them had left, leaving Su Yu and Shao Lingjian alone. "I should have taken your life at the stone pillar." Shao Lingjian's gaze was filled with killing intent as he charged at Su Yu. Crack! Crack! Many bone-cracking sounds echoed out of his body, and in an instant they reached 58. This was 9 more than when they had fought at the stone pillar. He had hidden a part of his power at that time. "Die!" Xiao Lingjian thrust his palm at Su Yu. His palm possessed a shocking might, and it was even more powerful than a level 5 fairy's fleshly body. If it had been anyone else, they would have been killed by such a powerful attack. However, it was a pity that his opponent was Su Yu. Chapter 779. Xiao Lingjian furrowed his brows and asked, "What power do you have?" Su Yu laughed and clenched his fist. The air currents in the surrounding space were instantly sucked out and gathered around Su Yu's palm. They were compressed into a pitch-black ribbon. Compressed air to the extreme? This is a middle-grade legendary cultivation technique? Xiao Lingjian's expression changed. Su Yu opened his mouth and uttered the word fight, while the black sphere, which was revolving quickly in his palm, flashed toward Xiao Lingjian. Both of them used legendary cultivation technique. Su Yu's cultivation technique was at the top class of the first stage, while Xiao Lingjian's was at the lower class of the first stage. Bang! The black ball exploded, releasing an extremely powerful sound wave that radiated in all directions. A gale swept across the sky, and ancient trees were sent flying. Yuan Yingying and Siduyan, who had already flown several hundred miles away, also sensed the powerful sound waves and couldn't help but look back. Xiao Lingjian didn't retreat when he was attacked by the sound wave. He shouted in a low voice and used his all-conquering fists to split the sound waves apart. When the sound wave dissipated, Xiao Lingjian's body was still surrounded by the remnant airflow. Apart from his torn robe and his fists, there were only a few shallow bloodstains on his body. Su Yu's legendary-level cultivation technique's progress was 2 levels higher than his opponent's. However, they were evenly matched. The Buddhist Saint's 8 characters was a mid-grade legend-rank cultivation technique, while the 100-bone demonic tempering technique was a high-grade legend-rank cultivation technique. Who are you? How could a rogue cultivator have a mid-grade legendary cultivation technique? It's extremely difficult for the 18 sects Outer Sanctum's disciples to come into contact with it, and among the powers that aren't from the 18 sects, only my Xiao family has a high-grade incomplete scroll. Xiao Lingjian's pupils contracted, and his expression became grave. Legendary-level cultivation techniques were not commonly seen in the 18 Blessed and Heavenly Land. Most of the outer disciples of the 18 sects practiced low-tier legendary cultivation method. Middle and high-tier ones were far behind them. Low, mid, and high. The difference between the 3 types of cultivation techniques was huge, which could be seen from the exchange just now. Even a level 7 fairy realm expert could kill a level 7 fairy realm expert, yet he was only on par with a level 7 lower-tier expert. However, they couldn't help but admit that Xiao Lingjian's hidden fighting prowess was quite great, and it was comparable to a level 7 fairy. However, it was a pity that Su Yu had easily neutralized the attack, which was supposed to kill him. "I'll interrogate you after I capture you." Xiao Lingjian's expression sank, and he took out a talisman with his right hand. It emitted an astonishing spiritual pressure, and one could faintly sense a divine master's power. This talisman was not meant to attack, but to confine. My father didn't hesitate to spend 300,000 crystal stones to buy this talisman from the black market. It's impossible for anyone below the middle stage divine master realm to escape from it, and it was originally meant for me to trap my enemies and flee for my life. But now I can use it to capture you. Xiao Lingjian threw caution to the wind. Su Yu's expression was calm, and he nodded slightly. Yes, I should indeed end this quickly. I shouldn't expose myself for too long. Xiao Lingjian felt restless in his heart. Could it be that he was still hiding his strength? With a thought, Xiao Lingjian immediately infused his true energy into the talisman and activated it. At the same time, Su Yu also moved. Time freeze. Xiao Lingjian, who was about to crush the talisman, froze on the spot. He was overwhelmed with shock in his heart, and he was unable to control his body. Su Yu calmly walked over, and an extremely sharp silk thread popped out of his sleeve. Xiao Lingjian felt a chill on his neck, and his head fell to the ground. His face was filled with fright. Even in death, he still didn't believe that he would die so easily. If he had known that the all-creation old monster Shwedi, as well as many almighty divine masters, had all been killed by him, he wouldn't have had such a thought. Su Yu took the talisman in his hand and revealed a satisfied smile. This talisman, which could even trap an early-stage divine master, was quite useful to him. After he took back the silk thread, he flicked his finger and turned Xiao Lingjian's corpse and head into ashes. He also took his spatial ring. After he had done all of this, Su Yu didn't let down his guard. Instead, he swept the area with his ice-cold gaze and revealed a cold smile. "I've disappointed you, evil creature." Swoosh! A scarlet marten, which was 2 mountains away, jumped out in fright. It was extremely quick, and even Su Yu's soul eyes could only catch a glimpse of its afterimage. It was a scarlet marten, and it had been following Su Yu from afar. It was trying its best to hide its aura and keep a distance from him. It assumed that it had hidden itself well, but it didn't know that Su Yu's soul eyes could see through all obstacles, and he could even see it clearly from 10 mountains away. Previously, when he was chasing after the Sidhu family, even though he had noticed that it was following him, he didn't look into it. Now that he had dealt with it, how could he allow it to continue watching him? "You want to escape?" Su Yu's whole body flickered with lightning as he turned into a bolt of lightning and chased after it. Sizzle! 10,000 miles away. The scarlet marten was fleeing in the forest when a bolt of lightning suddenly struck it. It was so frightened that it let out a sharp cry. It then changed its direction and turned into a streak of light as it tried to escape. "Since I'm already here, can you still escape?" Su Yu spread his fingers and used the dry cloud 5 elemental formation, which turned into a light screen that engulfed the marten. However, the scarlet marten had a quick reaction, and it opened its mouth to bite the light screen. However, when it was about to bite the light screen, the space in front of it fluctuated, while 3 small golden swords appeared and struck its body. Ding! Ding! When the small golden swords struck its body, they couldn't even cut through its fur. However, the energy contained in the small swords still managed to send its body flying. The scarlet marten was infuriated, and its ferocious energy surged. It used this energy to turn around and charge at Su Yu. Its green eyes were filled with ferocity as it let out a sharp cry. Su Yu was surprised. "Oh? Did someone steal your beast egg? Did you think that it was me?" The scarlet marten was startled, and its green eyes were filled with shock. It then muttered, "Do you understand the demon clan's language?" "I understand a little," Su Yu said. He had in his mind all the languages of the various clans, which Tian Jizi had spent his entire life studying, and the demon clan's language was among them. The scarlet marten stopped and stared at Su Yu. It then roared resentfully, "Despicable human! Return my beast egg!" At this moment, Su Yu could roughly guess the scarlet marten's identity. It was a rumored grade 6 fairy in the 100 Beasts Valley, the king of all beasts. It was probably the one who had started the beast tide. The mysterious light that had caused all of their vital energy to stagnate at the last moment must have been caused by this scarlet marten. Su Yu shook his head. "I don't know anything about the beast egg. I'm afraid that I've found the wrong person. It must have been done by another group of humans. Their goal was to provoke you into starting the beast tide and killing the other humans." The scarlet marten came to a sudden realization, and the resentful look in its eyes disappeared. It then asked, "Is that so?" Su Yu nodded calmly. "Since that's the case, I will spare your life. If you dare to follow me again, don't blame me for being merciless." As he raised his hand, the 3 small golden swords returned to his palm. However, just when Su Yu let his guard down, 2 tree vines, which were as thick as an arm, suddenly sprang out from under his feet and bound his legs. At the same time, the scarlet marten raised its head, and its resentment, which had been restrained for a long time, erupted 100-fold. "Foolish human! Even if it wasn't you, it was all because of you." After it spoke, the scarlet marten extended its sharp claws and tried to scratch Su Yu's chest. It didn't feel that Su Yu had let it go out of kindness. Instead, it pretended to be relieved and tried to kill Su Yu. The tree vines under its feet were the tree demons that it had summoned in secret, and they were controlling Su Yu's lower body. Everything had happened so suddenly and without any warning. Su Yu's expression was calm and composed, but disappointment could be seen in the depths of his eyes. "I have already given you a chance." Swoosh! A yellow and blue pearl had suddenly appeared in Su Yu's palm, and as he flicked it, it flew through the air and collided with the scarlet marten. The scarlet marten let out a miserable shriek as its chest was crushed by the pearl, which penetrated through its back. When the pearl fell on the ground, the whole ground shook intensely. "Ah, you! Were you guarding against me?" The scarlet marten fell on the ground, while its eyes were filled with resentment. As Su Yu's feet shook, a miserable shriek echoed out from the ground, which quickly weakened. The ancient vines that bound his legs were untied. Su Yu sucked in the air and took the pearl back into his palm. He then asked calmly, "What do you think?" After he spoke, he waved the silk threads in his sleeves and beheaded the marten. At the same time, he stored the marten's corpse in his spatial ring. Su Yu had forgiven it for starting the beast-tide and putting him in danger because it had already lost its child. He didn't expect that a good person wouldn't be rewarded. Su Yu shook his head, soared into the air, and left quickly. What he didn't know was that not long after he left, Zi Xian appeared like a ghost at the place where he had killed Xiao Lingjian. Her pretty eyes were filled with a cold glint as she clenched her teeth and said, "Time power, sound wave cultivation technique. It's him, Su Yu. He's really in the Red Blood Palace." In the following day, Su Yu hunted demonic beasts in the forest. He only hunted level 3 fairies and above, as many demonic beasts were wandering around due to the beast tide. Thus, he managed to hunt and kill more than 30 demonic beasts in one day. However, if he ran into any of the Xiao family's disciples, he would cripple all of their cultivations. It was obvious what it meant to lose one's cultivation in the fairy confining forest, which was filled with demonic beasts. As Su Yu looked at the sky, he realized that 3 days were almost up. Su Yu tapped the ground lightly and flew back to the stone pillar. Meanwhile, Shaoli was standing on a giant rock somewhere in the forest. She was frowning. 3 days were almost up, yet none of the family members had come to meet them. This was the place where they had agreed to meet up after 3 days. But now there wasn't a single person here. What happened? Even the young master didn't come. Shaoli felt that something was amiss, so she pondered the matter for a moment before she said, "The Shangguan family's level 5 fairy was killed, while the Sidhu family's bamboo hat man died in the 100 Beasts Valley. So, there shouldn't be any danger to the young master and the others." Shaoli pondered this for a moment before she carried her giant bow and left. On the stone pillar, Madame Sidhu's face was filled with gratification. Her family members' casualties were much lower than what they had expected, and Sidhu Yen had also returned safely. 12 of them had successfully completed the first part of the exam. The only thing that was lacking was that Su Yu still hadn't returned. In comparison, the Shangguan family was still frowning. They had less than 8 people who had passed the first part of the exam, and the level 5 fairy they had hired had died. So, it would be difficult for them to give an explanation to the soul-seizing palace. Their only consolation was that they hadn't suffered any casualties, as the bamboo hat man had helped them resolve the crisis of being wiped out. "Father, that bamboo hat man's power is really outstanding. He managed to kill 9 blaze leopards by himself," Shangguan Yunk said. The Shangguan family's master nodded. "Yes, I'm afraid that we have all underestimated his power. He isn't just a level 4 fairy, and he probably possesses the fighting prowess of a level 5 fairy. Yunk, you must invite him over, as I want to have a talk with him personally. We must rope in such a talented person." An odd look appeared on Shangguan Yunk's face. "I heard Hoodlum say that he helped us because of me. Could he be an old friend of mine? The Shangguan family's master wore a faint smile. I hope that's the case. I didn't expect that you would befriend such a talented expert. At this moment, a man wearing a bamboo hat flew over from the horizon. It was Su Yu, who had just arrived. Shangguan Yunk's eyes lit up, and he quickly intercepted him. He then looked at him curiously, cupped his fists at him, and said, "Brother, thank you for your help. I thank you sincerely on behalf of the Shangguan family. May I know your name?" Chapter 780. Shangguan Fei's expression tightened as he looked over. He had asked Su Yu this question in person before, but all he received was a strange response: "You wouldn't want to know." Many people's eyes lit up as they curiously sized up the mysterious man in the bamboo hat before them. The battle prowess that had crushed the Shao family had left a deep impression on them. Lady Situ furrowed her brows. The Shangguan family's intentions were obvious, and they wanted to snatch a genius like Su Yu. Under the gaze of many people, Su Yu could no longer avoid them. After pausing for a moment, he raised his hand and took off the bamboo hat on his head, revealing his true appearance. His aged face stood out from the crowd of young geniuses, and his entire body seemed to be in high spirits. Even the young palace mistress and palace mistress Kong Chan, who were sitting calmly, couldn't help but look surprised. Lady Situ, the Shao family's master, and the other geniuses were all stunned. "Why is it an old man? It's impossible. This is the Red Blood Palace's recruitment test, and it's only open to disciples below the age of 20. Has the Situ family gone mad? How dare you cheat in this aspect? No wonder this person's cultivation is so ordinary, but his strength is so strong. At such a young age, his experience, methods, and combat naturally far surpass us. The geniuses of the Shao clan were defeated in such an unjust manner." The crowd was bewildered, and their expressions gradually changed. Situ Yan's red lips opened wide in an exaggerated manner. She assumed that Su Yu's aged voice was due to his intonation. "Big-breasted woman, why is brother Su so?" She wanted to say something but hesitated. The impact on her heart was not small. "So old, isn't it?" Yuan Yingying pursed her lips into a smile. "If you don't like it, then don't get close to Big Brother Su." She was more than happy to be able to drive away the flat-chested Situ Yen from Su Yu's side. Of course, it would be perfect if she could drive away Zixian as well. Situ Yen glared at him angrily. "You're the one who dislikes me. I'm just surprised. I'm a martial artist. Do I care about age?" Age and appearance were no longer the same in cultivation. Martial artists were far more sensitive to age than mortals. However, the ones who were truly shocked were the Shangguan clan. Shangguan Yunk was startled, and his pupils contracted. A bitter smile appeared on his face as he asked, "Brother Su, why is it you?" The genius youth that his father had reminded him many times to invite into the Shangguan family was none other than Su Yu, who had been a guest at the Shangguan family previously. He had almost become a genius recommended by the Shangguan clan. However, the situation had changed, and the Shangguan clan had stripped him of his spot. In a sense, he was driven away by the Shangguan clan. Shangguan Fei's expression was equally interesting. He was dumbfounded and could not believe the figure in front of him. He could not reconcile it with the old man who had been forced to leave. He stammered, How could it be him?" The Shangguan family's chief's brows twitched. He was slightly surprised. This young man in front of him looked familiar, as if he had seen him somewhere before. After a while, he finally recalled that this was the young man who was recommended by Yunk to join the Shangguan family. For a moment, his expression was complicated, alternating between red and green. Su Yu, whom he had forced to leave, actually possessed such shocking potential. Remorse, self-blame, embarrassment, and many other emotions welled up in his heart. Su Yu looked at Shangguan Yunk and said with a faint smile, "I'm really sorry that I didn't manage to greet you before." Shangguan Yunk opened his mouth, then turned his head to look at his father, whose face was now flushed with anger. He shrugged his shoulders bitterly and said, "I thank Brother Su for saving me on behalf of the Shangguan family." They finally understood why the plated bamboo hat man had saved the Shangguan family out of respect for Shangguan Yunk. Su Yu waved his hand at him calmly and said, "Brother Shangguan, your blue water 9 heaven wings saved my life, so why should I thank you for saving your family?" He was just about to continue chatting with them when a fragrant fragrance assaulted his nostrils. Madame Sidhu came over to him and said with a smile, "Mr. Su, thank you for protecting Yen. Come back and recuperate your body, as the second part of the exam will soon begin." Su Yu nodded at Shangguan Yunk, then went back to the stone pillar. Shangguan Yunk went back to the family's stone platform with an odd look on his face. Everyone's expressions were quite interesting, especially the Shangguan family's chief, who was too ashamed to look his son in the eye. Shangguan Yunk felt quite carefree for some unknown reason. In the past, he had begged his father many times, but his father had stubbornly insisted on expelling him. Now, he had amazed the world with a single brilliant feat, and the Shangguan family had become a laughingstock. "Yunk, why didn't you introduce Mr. Su to us clearly?" the Shangguan family's chief asked in embarrassment. Shangguan Yunk shrugged his shoulders and said, "Hee, I clearly told you about his potential. Father, you must take care of the family's juniors, so if you insist on doing this, what can I do?" The Shangguan family's chief's gaze became gloomy, and after a long while, he raised his eyes and looked at Su Yu with a complicated gaze. He then heaved a long sigh and said, "I misjudged him. It was almost impossible for him to invite Su Yu back. It was easy to drive him away, but difficult to invite him." After returning to the Sidhu family, Su Yu swallowed Madame Sidhu's elixirs and quickly recovered his vital energy. Sidhu Yen immediately came over to him and started chattering. She was quite curious about Su Yu's body's strange condition. Madame Sidhu also said, "Mr. Su, I'm not that talented, but I know a bit about alchemy. Why don't you stay in the Sidhu family? I want to find a way to help you recover." Even now, she still wanted to keep Su Yu in the Sidhu family. "Madam, I appreciate your kindness, but I've already found the focus of your illness. As long as I can make a breakthrough in my cultivation and recover my lifespan, my body will naturally recover to its previous state." Su Yu rejected her tactfully. Madame Sidhu sighed inwardly. Leaving him in the Sidhu family was really making things difficult for him. Time elapsed slowly, and almost everyone had arrived. As the Shao family's chief looked at the fairy confining forest, anxiety appeared in his eyes. None of the Shao family members had come back, but as he thought about Shao Li and Shao Lingjian, he wasn't really worried. With their power, they wouldn't face any danger. However, even when noon approached, they still didn't see anyone. "There is still a cup of tea left," Palace Mistress Kong Chan said calmly. Swoosh. At this moment, a woman flew over. It was Shao Li. The Shao family's chief felt slightly relieved, and he went over to her. "Li, you came back. Where are Ling Jian and the others? Why did you come back first?" Shock appeared on Shao Li's face as she asked, "Family's chief, didn't they come back first?" In an instant, the Shao family's chief's body stiffened, and he felt like his heart had been plunged into ice. "No. Didn't you all agree to meet at a certain place and come back together?" Shao Li's face gradually turned pale, and her lips trembled. "I followed your instructions and hunted high-grade demonic beasts by myself, then met them at the appointed place. But, before I left, none of them came back. I thought that they couldn't wait any longer and left first." Boom! A rumbling sound echoed in the Shao family's chief's mind, and he was greatly shocked. "Where are they?" Shao Li also felt restless, but she forced herself to calm down and comfort him. "Family's chief, please don't be anxious. With Lingjian's power, no one can harm them. Perhaps they are just running in the forest because they can't catch up to me." The Shao clan's master managed to regain some of his human color as he waited quietly. His eyes were filled with anxiety as he locked onto the direction of the celestial confining forest. Suddenly, a figure flew over from afar. Patriarch Xiao's pupils constricted, but when he looked over, he saw that it was the person hired by the Situ clan, Zi Xian. Zi Xian's body flickered elegantly, and she returned to Su Yu's side. She then transmitted her voice to him and said, "After the test, let's have a private talk. I have something to discuss with you." Su Yu's heart thumped. Could it be that his identity had been discovered? There is still half the time it would take to brew a cup of tea. Palace Mistress Kong Chan swept her gaze over the Xiao family's stone pillar with a strange expression. After the beast tide, the disciples of the other great clans had suffered disastrous losses. Some of them had passed the 7th stage, but there were still some survivors. However, only one person from the Xiao clan had returned, and he occupied a stone pillar all by himself. It seemed very out of place. As time passed, the Xiao family's master's eyes became dry, and he stared fixedly at the confining immortal forest, hoping that Xiao Lingjian would come back with a large number of his clansmen. However, the immortal confining forest was dead silent. "Time's up," Palace Mistress Kong Chan announced calmly. She stood up slowly and said, "Reception elders, please count the people who have passed the test." Rub, rub, the Xiao family's master retreated several steps, and his last strand of hope was extinguished. Something unexpected must have happened to Xiao Lingjian and the others. There were only two possibilities as to why none of them managed to come back. They were either trapped or they were all killed. "Li Er, do you have any clues? Who did this?" The Xiao family's master's voice was gloomy, and his expression was gloomy. Xiao Li's whole body shivered, and she looked around while shaking her head. She then suddenly noticed Su Yu, and she asked in surprise, "Who is that old man? Why haven't I seen him before?" "He's Su Yuxian. Don't pay attention to him. Let me ask you, who did this?" "What? He's that plaited bamboo hat man? It's impossible." Xiao Li's eyes flickered. He was in the 100 Beasts Valley when the beast tide occurred, and even if he had great abilities, it would still be impossible for him to escape. "Well?" Xiao Yueming furrowed his brows and fixed his eyes on Su Yu. He then asked in a deep voice, "Are you saying that it's him? I'm not sure, but I can't rule out the possibility that he's trying to take revenge on the Xiao family. There are so many talented juniors here, and if there's anyone who could cause trouble for Xiao Lingjian and the others, it would be him," Xiao Li said coldly. The more she thought about it, the more suspicious she found Su Yu to be. An ominous glint flickered in Xiao Yueming's eyes as he took a step forward and crossed the stone pillar. He then stood on the Situ family's stone pillar and strode toward Su Yu. "Where are my Xiao family's people? Where are they?" Shock appeared on Madame Situ's face as he questioned Su Yu. Shock appeared on Madame Situ's face, and she used her divine master's power to counteract Xiao Yueming's aura. She then furrowed her brows and said, "Xiao Yueming, you are going too far." Su Yu had descended on her stone pillar and interrogated her. How could the Situ family still have any face left? "My Xiao family's entire generation of geniuses has gone missing. Madame Situ, if you really want to stop me from finding out the truth, I'll accompany you to the end." Xiao Yueming's eyes were bloodshot, and he seemed like a wild beast that had fallen into a desperate situation. Madame Situ's heart shuddered and she clenched her teeth. When she was about to obstruct him, Su Yu shrugged his shoulders and wore a baffled look as he asked, "Xiao family's master, you are really bewildered. All of your Xiao family's children are extremely talented, so why are you asking me about them when they didn't come back?" Xiao Yueming spoke in a deep voice, "Lad, I don't have any techniques to waste my breath on you, so I will only ask you one question. Where are they?" Su Yu looked at him calmly and replied, "I don't know." Xiao Yueming suppressed his killing intent and looked at the Situ family's juniors. He then asked coldly, "What about you? Did any of you see them?" The Situ family's juniors wore bewildered looks. They had been chased by the Xiao family, and it was only after Situjio had helped them escape that they managed to escape. So, how could they know about the Shao family's situation? Situjio was the only one who avoided his gaze. Even though he was unconscious, he still had a vague idea that it was the bamboo hat man, Su Yu, who had appeared and saved him. In other words, the bamboo hat man was the last person who came into contact with the Shao family's disciples. Well, a divine master's eyesight was extremely sharp. Situjio's subtle changes in his expression couldn't be concealed from others. Swoosh! Xiao Yueming's figure flickered as he appeared in front of Situjio and pressed his shoulder. He then shouted at him, "What do you know? Speak!" Situjio was startled, and as he faced the Divine Master's powerful aura, his knees went soft and he almost fell to the ground. "I don't know. Our Situ family's disciples were hunted by your Shao family's disciples, and I was heavily injured by Shao Lingjian. When I woke up, I was already here." "What? Hunted by the Situ family's disciples?" All of the families present were startled by this. Such a matter was prohibited by the Red Blood Palace, and now that it was openly stated, the Shao family would surely face trouble. "How dare you slander my Shao family? Do you want to die?" Xiao Yueming glared at him angrily and shouted in a deep voice. Situjio was so scared that his whole body shivered. Situyen was also afraid of him, but she still bit her lip and said, "What a joke! Are all of our Shao family's disciples blind? Don't you know who hunted us?" Xiao Yueming looked at her with a warning gaze. At this moment, Shangguan Fei, who was in the Shangguan family's side, mustered his courage and said, "Our Shangguan family can testify to this matter. The Shao family's disciples also hunted us, and our level 5 fairies were assassinated by them. Later on, we witnessed them hunting down the Shao family. Both sides could testify to this matter, so there was no doubt about it." Palace Mistress Kong Chan opened her eyes slowly, while her old eyes emitted a cold glint. Her amiable face was filled with dignity as she said, "The Outer Sanctum's Law Enforcement Hall will investigate this matter, and once they confirm that the Shao family has violated the rules, they will surely be punished severely." She then added, "Shao family's master, please return to the stone pillar. After a while, the Law Enforcement Hall will enter the fairy confining forest to look for the Shao family's disciples and question them about this matter." The Red Blood Palace was already used to such fights, so they didn't want to investigate this matter. Moreover, none of the Shao family's disciples had returned yet, so it was highly likely that they had all been killed. At most, this matter would be left unsettled. Xiao Yueming wasn't willing to accept this, and his gaze fell on Su Yu once again. He looked at him like a ferocious beast. He knew that the disappearance of Ling Jian and the others was surely related to him. But now, he couldn't do anything about it. He wasn't willing to go back, but he still had a glimmer of hope in his heart. "Li you will take the test here, while I will go into the forest to look for them. If Ling Jian is harmed in the slightest, I will kill that lad." Shao Lingjian was the Shao family's sole disciple, so they couldn't afford to lose him. The envoy's test started, and they all inspected the stone pillars they were in charge of. Elder Li wore a faint smile as he inspected the corpses they had brought back. When it was Sidu Yan's turn, Elder Li said amiably, "You are just a level 1 fairy, so you need to kill 20 demonic beasts at the same level as you. Is that enough? Take them out and let me inspect them." Situ Yen revealed a crafty smile. "I only killed one." Elder Li's expression stiffened, and he looked at Lady Situ apologetically. There was such an obvious disparity between them, and he couldn't help her in front of Palace Mistress Kong Chan's swoosh. However, when Situ Yen took out a level 2 fairy demonic flame snake, Elder Li's pupils contracted slightly. He immediately took it and placed it on his palm, then stuck a talisman on the demonic flame snake's corpse. A strange scene then occurred, as numerous light spots appeared on the demonic flame snake's corpse. They were all wounds left by the demonic flame snake's attack. The light spots' colors are the same, and their vital energy fluctuations all belong to Sidu-yen. The test proves that it was killed by Sidu-yen alone, and no one else intervened, Elderly said. If someone else had intervened, even if they had just trapped the demonic beast, they would have left different vital energy fluctuations on the demonic beast's body, which would have caused the light spot's colors to be different. When they heard this, the crowd wasn't surprised that Sidu-yen had passed the test, but they were still amazed by her ability to kill demonic beasts at a higher level. Shangguan Yunk looked at Sidu-yen and said, "It's rumored that the Situ family's eldest daughter is proficient in formations. I wonder if it's true." Upon hearing this, Shangguan Yunk was startled. Formations? This is the talent that the Red Blood Palace values the most. The Situ family really gave birth to an outstanding genius. Lady Situ wore a satisfied look as she looked at her daughter. Elderly wore a smile as he inspected the Situ family's disciples one by one. There were 18 of them in total, and in the end, 12 of them passed the test. This was more than double the previous year's number. The reason for this was that the beast tide had caused a large number of low-grade demonic beasts to wander about, which made it easier to hunt them. Otherwise, their numbers would have been halved. However, Su Yu's appearance was also an important reason why many families were afraid of them, so they didn't try to kill them in secret. Finally, it was Su Yu and the other two's turn. Zi Xian threw a Grade 2 Fairy Realm Purple Thunder Deer at them. When Elderly inspected it, he found it slightly strange, as he couldn't find any wounds on it. However, the vital energy fluctuations that were left on it clearly belonged to Zi Xian. Yuan Yingying also passed the test, and when Elderly inspected her, his pupils contracted slightly. A soul attack? Elderly took a deep look at Yuan Yingying, then squeezed out a gentle smile. In the end, Elderly's gaze fell on Su Yu and he said, "Take out the corpse." Su Yu looked at the surroundings and said, "There isn't enough space here. Elderly, please have a look at my spatial ring." Many people were paying attention to him, and they were all startled when they heard this. How many demonic beasts did he kill? Elderly was flabbergasted by this, and when he took the spatial ring and scanned its contents, his pupils contracted. There weren't many demonic beasts here, as there were only around 30 of them. However, every single one of them was a giant high-grade demonic beast. They were all at least Grade 3 fairies, and there were only 9 blaze leopards, which seemed like they had been killed by Su Yu in passing. As for Grade 4 Fairy Realm demonic beasts, there were more than 15 of them. What shocked Elderly the most was that there were still 4 Grade 5 fairies among them. If he knew that Su Yu only had a single day to hunt for demonic beasts due to various reasons, he would probably be even more astonished. Elderly sucked in a breath of cold air. This wasn't the first time he had been in charge of guiding the envoys, but it was rare for him to hunt so many high-grade demonic beasts. After all, such people, who entered the outer sanctum, were all outstanding geniuses and had great achievements. "I found a good seedling," Elderly thought inwardly. When Elderly started calculating the points, he suddenly discovered that there was an unremarkable scarlet corpse among the giant demonic beasts. It was a scarlet marten. A scarlet marten? Elderly was startled for a moment, and he recalled something in his mind. It seems like marten demonic beasts can only be found in the depths of the fairy confining forest. This place. It seemed like Elderly suddenly recalled something, and his expression changed drastically. A scarlet marten? An evil-eye scarlet marten? His eyes shone with shock as he stared at the evil-eye scarlet marten's corpse with a grave expression. There was shock in his eyes, but there was also an indescribable heaviness in them. Elderly averted his gaze and looked at Su Yu with a solemn expression. "After the second round of the exam, you should stay here alone. Palace Mistress Kong Chan might come to talk to you." Su Yu was startled. "What did I do wrong?" Elderly hesitated for a moment, then said in a grave voice, "You made a grave mistake. You shouldn't have killed this evil-eye scarlet marten. It had a special status, and you caused a great disaster by killing it." Chapter 781. The beast had wanted to spare Su Yu's life, but since it was seeking its own death, it couldn't blame Su Yu. All right. Su Yu's expression was calm as he nodded. No matter how big of a disaster it was not as big as being hunted down by 6 all creation's old monsters. The inspection of the pillars was soon completed, and the guide elder presented the inspection results to Palace Mistress Kong Chan. After the time it took to brew a cup of tea, all the examinees' results were summarized. Palace Mistress Kong Chan's old face revealed a faint smile as she scanned the list of examinees. I didn't expect that the various families would have more examinees than before, even though they suffered heavy losses due to the beast tide. A rough count showed that around 40 people had passed the test. In the past, there were less than 20 people. This is especially true for the Situ clan. More than half of them are here. Palace Mistress Kong Chan could not help but glance at the Situ clan. She nodded with a smile. This action was seen by many families, and they were all envious and solemn. This meant that Palace Mistress Kong Chan was very satisfied with the Situ family's performance. I will announce the ranking of the points. Only the top 5 will be announced. Palace Mistress Kong Chan said. The 5th place goes to Shan Qilin, who killed 20 level 3 fairy realm demonic beasts. He got 800 points. The 4th place is Qin Yu. He killed 23 level 3 fairies and got 920 points. The 3rd place is Zhang Fan. He killed 20 level 4 fairies and got 2000 points. Zhang Fan nodded slightly. 3rd place was within the acceptable range. The 2nd place is Shaoli. She killed 20 level 5 fairies. She got 10,000 points. The crowd burst into an uproar. The only level 5 fairy would have to kill 20 demonic beasts of the same level. Shaoli frowned slightly. Only 2nd place? The ranking was out of his expectations. His eyes involuntarily turned to look at Su Yu. Could it be him? 1st place, Su Yuxian, 9 grade 3 demonic beasts, 15 grade 4 demonic beasts, and 5 grade 5 demonic beasts. Total points, 30-10. The strange ranking stunned everyone present. 3,000 points were ranked before 10,000 points. What was going on? Even Lady Situ was stunned and confused. Is there a problem? If not, you can proceed to the next test, Palace Mistress Kong Chan said expressionlessly. Gritting her teeth, Shaoli braced herself and asked, May I ask, Palace Master, why are those with lower points than me ranked above me? Are there other rules to the ranking? Could it be that the demonic beasts he hunted had a hidden requirement to preserve their corpses intact? Palace Mistress Kong Chan shook her head and said, No, they are only ranked by points. Then why? Shaoli was unwilling to accept this. Such a ranking was really baffling. Palace Mistress Kong Chan replied calmly, It's because Su Yuxian didn't just kill the demonic beasts mentioned above. He also killed another demonic beast that was outside of the region, a level 6 fairy realm demonic beast. What? Even Lady Situ was shocked. A level 6 fairy demonic beast? Swish, swish, swish. Many pairs of horrified eyes looked at Su Yu. The fact that he was able to fight Xiao Lingjian to a draw had already made them think highly of him, but now it seemed like they had completely underestimated this monstrous genius. As such, even Shaoli couldn't kill a level 6 fairy by herself. Shaoli was shocked, and fear appeared in her gaze as she looked at Su Yu. However, she had been told by Xiao Yueming that she had to obtain 1st place in the 2 trials no matter what, as this matter was extremely important. Palace Mistress Kong Chan, level 6 fairy realm demonic beasts are outside of the region, so there aren't any points. So, even if he killed one, it can be considered as a wasted kill. Such a ranking isn't appropriate. Shaoli braced herself and spoke. The crowd couldn't help but smack their lips inwardly. The Xiao family's members were willing to risk their lives for the 1st place, and they even dared to question Palace Mistress Kong Chan. Palace Mistress Kong Chan looked at her calmly. She didn't use her imposing aura to intimidate her, as she spoke in a reasonable manner, The Fairy Confining Forest's trial's objective is to test one's fighting prowess. Since he had the power to kill a level 6 fairy realm demonic beast, he was naturally ranked first. If you also have such power, then you can also be ranked first. Do you still have any more questions? Xiao Li's face became flushed, and she raised her head and glared at Su Yu fiercely. If you don't have any more questions, then let's proceed to the next trial, the carp leaping over the dragon gate. Elder Li announced the rules. Elder Li wore a respectful look as he spoke in a loud voice. Sirs, please leave the stone pillars. Walala, everyone left and looked at the trial from a distance. At that moment, a crack appeared on the plaza in the middle of the 9 stone pillars, and a wave of water vapor surged out of it. Many disciples, who were engulfed by the water vapor, felt as if their heads were about to split open, and they found it difficult to breathe. Su Yu's pupils contracted slightly, and when the water vapor fell on his body, he discovered that it was extremely heavy. Even though it wasn't even a single drop of water vapor, it still weighed half a pound. Moreover, the heaviness didn't just come from his body, but also from his soul. This water vapor was also quite oppressive to his soul. Rumble! The plaza in the middle of the plaza was split open, revealing a giant pit that resembled a giant well. At the bottom of the giant well was a pool of clear water. Although the well's walls were trembling intensely, the well's water didn't move in the slightest. It seemed like it wasn't water, but an incomparably heavy boulder. It's about to start. The gazes of many family masters became grave, as they were all quite familiar with this. While many of the juniors were curious about it, the well's water suddenly decreased until there wasn't even a single drop left. It seemed like it had been sucked away by something. Then, to their surprise, the top of the 9 stone pillars began to spray out well water, covering the entire stone pillar. At the same time, layers of stairs gradually appeared on the stone pillars, winding from the bottom all the way to the top. There were a total of 99 steps. It turned out that the 9 stone pillars had sucked the well's water into them, then sprayed it out from the top. According to the rules of the carp leaping over Dragon Gate, walk up the stairs from the bottom of the 9 stone pillars. No vital energy is allowed, and no flying is allowed. Violators will be disqualified from the assessment. Those who successfully cross 10 steps are considered qualified. After that, every additional step you cross will earn you 1,000 points. Now the assessment begins. Hearing this, many of the genius juniors became very serious. The second segment of the double aptitude assessment, the carp leaping over Dragon Gate, was even scarier than the first segment. The casualty rate of the second segment was more than double that of the first. They had to walk up the stairs against the spray of water. If they were even slightly careless, they could be washed down the stairs by the water and fall to their deaths on the spot. It seemed like a joke, but it wasn't. The well's water was extremely heavy, and when it hit one's body, it was like a boulder. Once washed down, there was almost no room for resistance, and one would be smashed to the bottom of the well, never to climb out again. Its cruelty far surpassed that of the immortal confining forest. Many people who passed the first segment were hesitant, not daring to step forward. Whoosh! There were those who were hesitant, and there were those who were bold and confident. A white-clothed girl tapped her toes and landed at the bottom of the stone pillar like a butterfly, stepping onto the first step. The girl's skin was fair, and she was the 5th-ranked Shan Qilin. As soon as she stepped onto the first step, the fountain above the stone pillar suddenly rose. Like a torrential downpour, it fell down. The white-clothed girl's body was instantly soaked. The rock-like raindrops hit her body, causing her to groan in pain. Moreover, the rainwater soaked her clothes, making her feel incomparably heavy, as if she was carrying a 10,000-kilogram boulder on her back. Her confident face revealed a look of horror. She looked up and saw that the higher she went, the denser the water became. Looking down, she saw that it was the bottom of the endless well. Once she was washed down, she would die a horrible death. I give up. The white-clothed girl clenched her teeth and retracted her right foot that was about to step onto the second step. After weighing the pros and cons, she chose to give up. She resentfully fell back to the ground. The white-clothed girl muttered to herself, "Such a harsh assessment. Aren't we outer disciples people?" It was said that disciples who passed the inner court exam practically didn't have to go through any tests and could directly enter the outer court. In comparison, they had to experience the threat of death. The first person to try had chosen to give up, and it was a woman who had scored higher in the first test. For those who were eager to try, it was undoubtedly a rude awakening. The morale of the people around them plummeted. "I'll give it a try." Yuan Yingying glanced at Situyen and volunteered. In the second round of assessment, no one could protect him. He could only rely on himself. When Situyen sensed Yuan Yingying's provocative gaze, she puffed out her chest and said, "I'll go too." Lady Situ clenched her fists and her eyes flickered, but she did not stop him. He could only rely on himself for the second test. However, at this moment, Palace Mistress Kong Chan was startled, and her ears twitched slightly. "The two of you don't need to undergo the second test. An outer sect elder wants to see you. Congratulations. Elderly, bring them to the External Affairs Hall," Palace Mistress Kong Chan said with a smile. As soon as these words were spoken, the expressions of everyone present froze, and it was difficult to conceal the jealousy on their faces. They had risked their lives to accept the test of death, but the two girls were directly chosen by the outer sect elders and were exempted from the test? Unfair. But so what? This was the Red Blood Palace. It's within our expectations that Situyen was chosen by the elders. She's a rare formation master, and she has an extraordinary status in the Red Blood Palace, someone said. But what's the origin of that girl called Yuan Yingying? Why was she chosen by the elders? Many people had similar questions. I think that she must have displayed some kind of powerful talent. Many elders were secretly paying attention to the first test, and if someone displayed outstanding talent in some aspects, they would be chosen by them, and they would make an exception to join them. It's probably the case for this girl, someone said. It seemed like Yuan Yingying's soul talent, which she displayed when she killed demonic beasts using a secret soul technique, had tempted some old monsters. The two girls were dumbfounded. They were both overwhelmed by the unexpected favor, as happiness had come to them quickly. "Brother Su, I passed the test." Yuan Yingying wept tears of joy as she looked at Su Yu. Her heart was filled with gratitude. In the past, she had never imagined that she would have such a day. At that time, the world in front of her was just the small Yuan family, and the life she pursued was just to get the Yuan family's approval. She had never imagined that she would one day become a disciple of a colossal faction like the Red Blood Palace. All of this had changed because of Su Yu. "Lassie, go ahead and cultivate properly after you enter the test. We will meet again soon." Su Yu stroked her head, while affection appeared in his eyes. Situyen pouted and said, "Brother Su, goodbye. I will surely come to look for you." Su Yu chuckled, then bid farewell to the two girls. Su Yu heaved a sigh of relief, as he didn't have to worry about them anymore.